Hey guys. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Was Disabled. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 9. Separation. Attention, Sandaime Hokage. Memo. Requesting 3 separate missions assigned instead of 1. Required to test individual capabilities. Sign, Hatake Kakashi. Attention, Hatake Kakashi. Memo. Request granted. See the missions desk for possible assignments. No doubt you've already got something in mind. Sign, Sandaime Hokage. It was somewhat of a relief to be sitting with my back against the railing of the wooden bridge. The quiet rippling of the stream under the planks a soft whisper compared to the all-encompassing roar of the ocean. The bird calls fluttering through the wind were all familiar ones again, none of the unexpected keens and whoops that had ground on my nerves while we were away. It was good to be home. The rest of my team, minus our teacher, of course, was waiting in the morning sunshine, the light warm on my face as it cleared the ridge. I was a little bored, but listening to Sakura desperately trying to gather the courage to ask Sasuke out on a date was amusing. She'd managed to stammer her way through half an overture when Sensei appeared, and in the rush of air I nearly missed Sasuke's sigh of relief. "Good morning," Kakashi-sensei chirped, and I found myself mentally comparing his voice to the birds twittering in a shrub nearby. "You're late," Sakura snarled, sounding furious at being interrupted. I shuffled into a deeper slouch, uninterested in our teacher's excuse. I heard something about a bookstore and immediately stopped listening. They were well known, our teacher's bad reading habits. I started listening when Sasuke's foot tapped my railing. I don't know what I'd do without him. He was always the one who kicked me awake in class. Wave had been far too close. I have never understood your propensity for dwelling on what could have been. It did not happen. Cease considering it. I didn't have time to spare the suggestion more than an eye roll before all my attention focused on what my teacher was saying. "Sakura, you're going to be helping out at the hospital today. The boys are working on something else, so you'll have to have a quick talk to the head doctor to get an idea of what they need you for." She made a startled sound of protest, and Sensei, "I swear he gets weirder every day," said Shoo. Shoo. I couldn't help choking with laughter, and nearly fell off the bridge as Sakura walked hesitantly away, pausing every few seconds like she wasn't sure if she'd get called back or not. Sasuke's hand on my collar stopped me from getting extremely wet. "Che, you're such an idiot. Be more careful." Already Sakura's absence was obvious, a combination of the loss of her now familiar chakra and the quiet following her usual racket. "So what you want us for, Sensei?" I asked cheerfully. "Boys only mission or something?" "Or something," Sensei agreed in a too light voice, and I sat up a bit straighter, suspicious. "What kind of something?" Sasuke asked from above me, moving a little closer. "The fun kind, of course." "Crap," we chorused gloomily. Kakashi didn't seem to notice our distinct lack of enthusiasm. If he did, he was doing a very good job of ignoring it. "Sasuke, the mother of the Hanasaki triplets wants to go to the markets today without the children. You need to watch the 3 of them for a few hours." I shuddered, and stood up, dusting myself off. The Hanasaki triplets were little brats, although at the very least it was unlikely to turn into another wave. A resigned HN from Sasuke gave his agreement to that thought. "At least it's not wave," and I stifled a grin, turning towards the Konohan streets. I didn't get far. "Now, Naruto, where are you off to?" Kakashi-sensei asked lightly, and I froze, a ball of ice forming in my stomach. Sasuke had stopped moving too, and he stepped a little closer to me. No matter what Sensei threw at us, we knew there was safety in numbers. Sensei shifted, and there was the dry rustle of paper on paper. "Naruto, you need to run messages to a few people." He passed me a handful of envelopes, 3 of which I promptly dropped, still not fully comprehending what he was asking of us. "But, Sensei," I said slowly, collecting the envelopes that had escaped. He ignored me entirely. "Well, you both have your assignments. Hop to it." He was splitting us up? "Come on, no time to waste," he urged, clapping a hand on my shoulder and making me flinch as he pushed me away from my friend. "Your messages are getting cold, Sasuke's charges are escaping." I twisted around in his grip instantly, trying to check on the Uchiha, and was shoved firmly in the back, making me stumble and nearly drop the letters again. "Come on, Naruto, get moving," he said sternly. I glared in his direction before breaking into a trot. The sooner I started, the sooner I'd finish. My heart was thundering in my ears, blood pulsing disturbingly in the fingers clenched around the paper notes, and I realized dimly that I was shaking a split second before I tripped over the curb. "Okay, I need to calm down," I thought, gasping for air. Sasuke might be stuck on his own with the triplets of doom, but I have got absolutely no reason to panic. Oh, what the hell am I doing? Who the hell are these letters for, anyway? Damn, Sensei, he's probably trying to save on postage. It took me several seconds, and more than one pass of my sensitive fingers, to decipher Kakashi-sensei's calligraphy. Mato guy, isn't that? Yeah, Squad 9's teacher, I remember now. I shuddered again, and then sighed. The easiest way to find him would be to listen. Like I told my team on that weird blindfolded mission, Rock Lee was bad. His teacher was worse. Tracking him down was far from hard, although as I fumbled through the trees, I know this area, damn it. I felt a stabbing pain developing in my head, spreading from my eardrums. For heaven's sake, why is he so noisy? He was running Squad 9 through a series of numbered drills. I had no idea what said drills entailed, but currently they were running laps as their teacher gave a speech on hard work and the flames of youth. I revised my opinion of Kakashi-sensei slightly. He was weird, but at least not clinically so like this nutcase. Mato-sensei? I called to get his attention, only to cringe and cover my ears as he turned towards me. Good morning, young shinobi. You are one of my eternal rival Kakashi's students, are you not? How may I help you this fine morning? My eyes were watering. Despite my attempt at protection, a driving ache rang straight through my ears and drove twin spikes of pain through either side of my head. It took me a few seconds to swallow the agonized whine in the back of my throat to choke out, Please, Mato-sensei, not so loud, it hurts. I tried for an apologetic grin. My apologies, young genin. I was relieved to hear a normal volume of voice from him, and cautiously pried my hands from my ears, swiping surreptitiously at my eyes. I am most sorry that my voice was causing you pain, he continued seriously. Such behavior is most unyouthful. My headache was fading already, and I managed a better imitation of a smile this time. It's okay, sir. It's just me. Sensei says my hearing's hypersensitive, so loud noises really hurt. I would still apologize for causing you pain. It was not my intention. Now, for what do you require my assistance? I sighed quietly, so many big words, and explained, Sensei has me running messages, and your name was the first one I could read. I held out the paper envelope, the paper almost sleek against my fingers in a way envelopes usually weren't. Handmade or just good quality. Thank you, young shinobi, Guy said seriously as he took the letter, and I relaxed minutely, putting both hands back on my little pile. I can see you have other duties to complete, so I will keep you no longer, young shinobi. Good luck on your quest for my eternal rival Kakashi. He'd started getting a bit loud at the end, making me thankful I'd been backing away the whole time. I bobbed my head in a quick bow, trying for respectful, before escaping back into the forest, the sound of Guy's shouting starting up again as he encouraged his genin. Okay, one down. That wasn't so bad. I could do this. Ow, I grumbled, rubbing my cheek from where I had just walked into a tree. Okay, next envelope. What the hell does this say? Sensei's handwriting was still nearly impossible to decipher. Seriously, I will never again complain about textbooks, but I managed to figure it out eventually. At least I hoped I had. Inuzuka-tsum. Kiba's mom, right? I frowned to myself, stumbling inelegantly over a tree root and swearing crossly as I trotted back towards town. She'd be at the clan compound, right? Unless she's on a mission or something. I felt a flash of worry. Would I have to hover around with her letter until she showed up again? It was bad security to just leave a message floating around, but shoved it aside. I'd deal with that if and when it came to it. Even outside the high stone and chain-link walls, it was all too easy to smell that this was distinctly dog territory, and it made the hair on the back of my neck prickle. The weight at the back of my mind shifted and flickered, but didn't come forward. The noise inside of the dog's barking was near about deafening. The Inuzuka and me have never really gotten along. I totally blamed the furball. It was fairly easy to get someone's attention. With the dogs going mad, it was fairly obvious there was someone at the gates, and only a little harder to convince the grumpy-sounding Chunin I got hold of that I'd only give the message to Tsum herself. The matriarch of the Inuzuka clan wasn't as bad as some people seem to think. A little rough around the edges, sure, but that was the whole clan in a nutshell. She didn't like me much, I knew, but she didn't actively dislike me either. The message was met with a grunt and a gruff, now scram, already. The dogs were giving me a headache, so I was all too happy to scram. The next name I managed to translate was one I only knew vaguely, Hagane Kotetsu. I think he's usually on desk duty or something. What's his buddy's name? Izumo? Maybe he'll be at the mission desk. He wasn't, but the Chunin who was organizing the forms for what sounded like a potential B-rank mission told me the pair was on duty at the south gate again, which at least meant I had no trouble finding them. From there, Kotetsu was an easy question away, and I was down a third envelope. Tell Kakashi I think he's a bastard for sending a genin around with these messages, Kotetsu said breezily, handing me a slip of smooth scrap paper as I turned to go back into the village. Great. Delegated to Messenger Bird. That's a great way to feel needed. Next translatable name on the list is Asuma-sensei, from Squad 10. Okay, I know for sure that they're in village somewhere, because if they weren't, Sakura would have complained about Ino's team getting to leave the village for a mission before us this morning instead of trying to ask Sasuke out. Heh, sucks to be him. Which training ground does Team 10 use? I couldn't remember, but then again, my team tended to bounce around whatever was available anyway. Unless Asuma-sensei was much more organized than Kakashi-sensei, the same thing was probably happening for them. I eventually tracked them down pretty much next to the academy. I hadn't even known there was a training ground that close. The difference between Shikamaru's team and Guy's, or even my own, for that matter, was a marked decrease in noise levels. Chuji was munching on an ever-present bag of chips and doing something with his chakra that I couldn't describe, while Ino was lounging against a nearby tree. I had no idea what she was doing. Shikamaru and the target of my search were sitting on the grass. From the occasional soft clacks of wood on wood, they were playing either Shugi or Go. Asuma-sensei? I eventually piped up to get his attention, when it seemed he was too focused on the game to acknowledge the human-sized messenger bird hovering a few feet away. I have a message from Kakashi-sensei. HM? Oh, thank you, Naruto, he said distractedly, taking the note with one hand and moving a piece with the other. Shikamaru just paused for a few seconds, thinking out his next move, and then clacked another piece into place. Asuma grumbled something under his breath, and the paper rustled. I envy you, Shikamaru, I commented, waiting for the return message Asuma-sensei was scratching out with a pen. Your team is so much quieter than mine. I winced as Ino suddenly barked something at Chuji, and Shikamaru shifted his weight. I don't see how yours could be much worse, he drawled. I have Ino, I grinned. I have Sakura and the person she likes to squeal over. Trust me, you got it easy, thanks, Naruto. Asuma handed me another little folded slip of paper. Take this back to Kakashi for me, would you? He moved another piece, then swore under his breath at Shika's counter. I grinned again and shuffled my envelopes, looking for the next readable one. Yamanaka Inoichi. Wow, I guess it's true that ninja run in families. Hey Ino, would you happen to know where your dad is today? I said aloud, tipping my head to look at the girl absently. Ino shifted on the grass, probably a little startled at being addressed. He's either at Shikamaru's, or at work, she replied eventually. Okay, where's work? I pressed. This time of day he probably wouldn't be at Shika's house yet. If he wasn't at work, then I knew where the Nara house was. Ino shrugged. The T&I department. I don't know where it is though. Oh, that's okay, I know. I nodded cheerfully and ran off, wanting to just get this stupid mission over with. What, exactly, is in these notes? That they're being sent to torture and intelligence? Suddenly I'm a little worried. Finding T&I was, like I told Ino, quite easy. Okay, so it would be hard to find for most people. But well, actually, I have no idea why I know where it is. It's sure as hell not a place I frequent. Wait. Tachi and I used to get sent here a lot. Me and Sasuke followed him at least once, against explicit orders, of course, but he must have known we were there. Arc. This thinking is making my head hurt. Where the hell is the door? Getting in was a whole other story. I had to stand through 3 pat-downs, a chakra check, and 2 intentions checks. Mind you, the receptionist sounded nearly as bored and annoyed as I did, which made me feel a little more vindicated in being pissed off by the procedure. Plus, the receptionist, no doubt eager to be rid of the annoying genin who wasn't even a threat, was all too happy to point me towards Ino's dad, who was working through a pile of reports when I knocked. Messenger, I explained, trying not to sound too exasperated. He mumbled something in response as he read Kakashi-sensei's letter, writing furiously with the hand not holding the paper and his mind clearly on something else. Thanks was mumbled distractedly and I scarpered, make a silent vow to never get conned into a desk job. They looked like utter hell. Even the mission desk had to be better than that. I checked the envelopes I still held, the paper slightly crumpled from being clutched for so long. Okay, and this next one is, Shiranui. Jerema? Man, Sensei's handwriting is really bad. Wait. No, I think it's Genma. Who the hell is that? I couldn't recall ever meeting or hearing of someone by the name, but since I still wasn't entirely sure whether or not I was reading it right, I decided to just skip it and flip the envelope to the back of the considerably diminished pile. There were only 2 other messages, and I eyed one of them with considerable trepidation. I didn't know much about Yuhi Kurenai, except that she was a Genjutsu master, one of the newer Jounin, and the 3rd Jounin sensei for this year. Hey, wasn't that Niji dude's cousin in this team? However, Hinata was infinitely less annoying than Niji, or Sakura, come to think of it, and the wild card Kiba was apparently having a staring contest with Shino's sunglasses. Hey! That's just what I picked up from Kurenai telling Hinata not to worry, that Kiba wasn't actually going to attack him, and that Shino was probably asleep. It wasn't like I had any visual cues to help. Yohi-sensei? I asked, feeling oddly shy. HM? She moved, a kind of loose grace in her chakra that caught my attention briefly. Yes, Naruto? Has Kakashi forgotten about the messenger bird system again? She added kindly. I grinned sheepishly in response and dropped my eyes. Genjutsu users tended to be a lot more observant than their counterparts, and offered her the letter, then waited in semi-awkward silence as she made an odd noise, or maybe it was Hinata squeaking like that, and quickly penned a reply. Would you mind taking this back to Kakashi for me? She asked, not actually handing me the paper until I nodded. Man, women are weird. All the other people just shoved their replies at me and ordered me to take them back. Kiba and Shino hadn't moved the whole time I was there, and I had the sneaking suspicion that Hinata had been on the verge of fainting, again. Seriously, she must be anemic or something. Happens all the time. In spite of all this, I came away with the odd feeling that Squad 8 was the most normal of our year. The only other envelope I had happily proclaimed Ibiki in Sensei's appalling calligraphy, and I groaned. Wonderful. Back to tea and I guess. This time the receptionist took one look at me and my pathetic handful of envelopes and waved me through, mumbling something uncomplimentary under his breath. I couldn't help but roll my eyes, wondering if they had any other form of checking who people are other than that first check, because otherwise that guy just let a potential security risk into a place that handles a lot of dangerous prisoners and intelligence. Okay, Ibiki, I really hope he's not on shift at the moment. I mumbled, shuddering at the thought of the smell of the lower sections. Not that I'd ever been down there, but I'd been around enough people who worked there to know the smell that clung to them had to be 100 times worse. The too familiar weight in the back of my mind perked up a little at the remembered stench of terror and pain, and I shoved it back with an eye roll. It took me nearly 10 minutes to track down the head of TNI, and a further 20 to actually find the office he was, apparently, doing paperwork in. I heard very little ink or pen scratching when I went in, as opposed to Inoichi. Message from Kakashi-sensei, I announced in a bored tone, all too happy to hand over the second-to-last note on my pile, leaving me with the one I either didn't know or couldn't read. As Ibiki pocketed his note with a rustle of paper and cloth, I had a flash of inspiration, fingering the unintelligible note. Since I'm down here, would you happen to know who Shirani Genma is? I asked hopefully, and got a grunt that could have constituted either surprise or derision. Yeah, I know him. Oh yes. But not where he is, he was quick to add. Some of my elation must have shown a bit too clearly. Sorry, kid. He sounded more amused than sorry, and I left the creepy HQ for the second time that day, with no idea where to find him, but at least fairly sure that Genma existed. I spent hours trekking over the village looking for Genma, but everyone I asked either ignored me, didn't know who he was, or didn't know where he was. Honestly, Ibiki had been the most helpful, and when the head of torture is being the most helpful, you know there's something up. My head ached, and I had no idea why the furball wasn't fixing whatever the hell the problem was, which only made me grumpier. Eventually, I gave up on ever finding this Genma character and stormed back to the Little Red Bridge, intending to just throw the damn letter in the stream if Sensei wasn't there. Fortunately for village security, my teacher was leaning against the railings lazily, and I heard him shift, probably to look at me, as I got closer, and I scowled at him. How did you go, Naruto? Who the hell is Genma? I snapped by way of reply, my temper made worse by the unmitigated thudding of my head. I've been all over the damn village and I can't find the guy, so if it's really that important, take the damn letter to him yourself. For all I know, you just made him up to annoy me. Hey! Said another voice, belonging to the other person I had sensed on the bridge. His chakra was vaguely familiar, but clearly not someone's I actually knew, so I had ignored him up until now. Kakashi-sensei was grinning, I just knew it. Naruto, I'd like you to meet an old friend of mine, Shirane Genma. Be nice to him. He just got in from a mission. Genma, this is Naruto, one of my genin. He's been delivering messages today. Speaking of, I grumbled, thrusting the last envelope at this Genma dude. Take the damn thing. And you get these. I turned and shoved the return messages I had picked up at my teacher, who started to go through them leisurely. Oh, what did you get? Genma asked, his voice laughing. Note from Asuma, note from Kotetsu, challenge from Guy, paper bomb. Naruto, how did that get in there? I didn't remember Guy giving me anything to take back. But assassination attempts aside, nothing interesting, my teacher finished, hand going out to pat my shoulder absently. The unexpected contact made me flinch. A job well done, Naruto? You're the first one finished, too. I stared at him flatly, too tired to make an effort to hide the blankness in my eyes with a smile. Can I go home yet? Kakashi's log. Sakura did well at the hospital. Separated from Sasuke and other influences from her age group, she did better than I'd expected. This kind of arrangement could be beneficial for her. It certainly would be wise to get her some medical training. The people I've spoken with have confirmed she has potential for it. Sasuke wasn't as focused as I thought he would be. He kept losing one of the triplets, and seemed to have trouble getting him back. He also seemed to be very upset with me by the end of the day, though I'm not entirely sure why. Naruto did alright with messages, see attached replies. Ibiki was zero help, told me to do my own job and let him do his. But he was in an appalling mood by the end of it. It seems he had trouble with my handwriting. He was also a bit scratched up, and horribly jumpy. Something in the way he looked at Genma and me. No. That can't be right. I can't believe it. I won't believe it. Maybe. Chapter 10, A Test of Subtlety. Ah! Naruto, what happened to you? Sakura screamed. Naruto, you're on fire again, said Sasuke, sounding bored. I thought I could smell smoke. I grumbled. I've been searching for the damn fire all the way here. Where the heck is it? Left sleeve. I started beating it out immediately. Thank you. Stupid shock tag backfired on me halfway through and blew up a lamp. Scared the crap out of the neighbor's cat. You do look slightly charred, Sasuke agreed, obviously amused. I thought you had the shock tags working? I do, actually. The paper I was using was contaminated, I explained. I'm not sure what the problem was, but it didn't feel quite right. Last time I ignored my gut screaming danger. Danger! Abort and run for life. I swear, it's a health hazard, ignoring your instincts. I was working on one of my poison tags last night. Maybe that had something to do with it. Sasuke snorted faintly. Whatever you like, Naruto. But you were going to work on your flips some more while we're waiting for Kakashi-sensei to show, remember? Oh yeah. I stretched carefully, before springing into a backflip, landing on my hands, and pushing off again to land on my feet. Sasuke grunted noncommittally. No, you're still off-center. Geez, can't you do anything right? Team, I grumbled. This is harder than it looks. You're still pushing too hard with your right hand and leg. It's turning you a little, the Uchiha reported, sounding smug and nonchalant to anyone's ears but mine. My ears heard the patience and encouragement he was communicating. No one seemed to have deciphered our private language. Sasuke-kun is right, Naruto, Sakura added. You really need to practice. Yeah, well, I am right-handed, I muttered under my breath, trying the maneuver again and stumbling slightly at an unknown terrain change. Stupid rocks. Today, with Sasuke helping me, I was trying to work on a particular style of backflip that I had been having trouble with. Apparently most ninja couldn't see what they were doing with this flip anyway, but they, unlike me, could see vaguely where the ground was. I had landed on my head more times than I cared to count in the past week. On the plus side, I was starting to learn the sort of passive reflection of chakra that was the ground that would have helped when I was learning tree climbing. A poofing sound and a sliver of chakra shaped into a shunshin signal caught me off guard halfway through another flip, and I curled up a little and went into a side roll so as not to crack my head against the ground. I had discovered that already to be not fun. You're late! Sakura yelled at our teacher, who was probably reading his stupid book again. You know, I'm starting to think he's always late, I said, very sarcastically, propping myself up on my elbows where I was lying on my stomach. Yes, I've noticed that too, Sasuke agreed, also sarcastic. Maybe it's not just a one-time thing. It does seem to be a bit of a habit, doesn't it? I think so, seeing as he's never been known to be on time before. Well, not since he was in ANBU, anyway, I mused, before realizing I shouldn't know that. Oh damn. Hey, where had I picked that tidbit up from anyway? I hadn't had the time to steal Kakashi's files yet. Not a mystery I could be bothered to solve. Kakashi-sensei seemed happier than usual today. You're all dismissed for the day, he said cheerfully, and left. I stared at the last spot I'd heard his voice, mouth twitching. He kept us waiting for that. You know, the hunt down Sensei and kill him plan is looking better every day, Sasuke muttered under his breath. I vote we break into his apartment and set his bookcase on fire. Sasuke chuckled tiredly. Both of us were ignoring Sakura, who was yelling at a teacher who wasn't present. We didn't try to interrupt her. The mission to wave had taught us some respect for female moodiness. We can't do that, Naruto. He's a jounin and our teacher. Plus, there's probably something to do with morality in there. Oh, by the way, our sensei said brightly, reappearing suddenly and nearly giving all three of us coronaries. I need to talk to you three tomorrow, so meet me at the Red Bridge at 5 a.m., bright and early. Don't be late. Then he was gone again. There was a pause. I'll bring the matches, Sasuke growled. All three of us chuckled slightly at that notion. Well, what should we do now? Sasuke asked, then automatically cringed as he recognized what he had said. Fortunately, he was saved from a fangirl attack by a scream about a block away from us. Before we even realized what was going on, all three of us were sprinting. As we shot down the street, Sasuke muttered, two unfamiliar ninja, Suna from their Hitayatesh. One's holding a kid by a scarf, 8 years old give or take, one ninja in black, male, mummy-like contraption strapped to his back. Second one is female, blonde-haired, looks bored, looks dangerous. I nodded my thanks, matching the three voices and chakra essences I could hear and sense to the descriptions, noting a fourth further off, before declaring, loudly, HUI. What do you think you're doing? If 3 kids dashing down the street hadn't gotten their attention, that had. Well, the male sneered, what do we have here? More Konohan brats. The girl, young woman, more like sighed. Kankuro, we're not here to make trouble. Put the brat down and let's go. You know Gaara won't be pleased if you cause a fuss. But Temari, he ran into me. And Gaara's not even here yet. The kid made a choking sound, and I literally felt my face hardening. Put him down, I ordered, my voice quieter than usual but with twice the force. You're on Konoha ground, attacking our people, Sasuke remarked from my left. The kid didn't hurt you, so quit looking for trouble, Sakura added, with a tiny spike of killer intent. I snorted slightly, the action perfectly silent. You're here for the exams, not to cause a diplomatic incident that could take years of paperwork to clear up. Now put him down. There was an almost soundless growl from the Suna ninja called Kankuro, and I stared at the spot I could guess his face to be with a stone mask, not glaring, but letting him know that I, and the rest of my team, meant business. And you can come down from there, I called sharply to a tree, the one with a set of vital signs and an unfamiliar chakra sitting on a high branch. I know you're hiding up there. There was the chakra flash of a shunshin, the sensation a little different to a Konohan shunshin, and the ninja in the tree reappeared much closer by and on ground level. Kankuro, he said, his voice a cold growl. We didn't come here to make trouble. Put him down or I'll kill you. His voice was totally matter-of-fact. I almost raised an eyebrow at the sudden fear scent flooding my nostrils at the third nin's appearance in the street. Apparently the other two hadn't known he was there, and were very scared of him. With a slight rustle of clothing, he seemed to turn slightly towards us and said, I am sorry for their behavior. Then his clothes rustled again as he turned away. The other boy, Kankuro, set the kid down and the little one ran away instantly, his chakra form immediately rejoining with 2 others before all 3 fled. Gaara. You see, what happened was, they started it, the kid, he, shut up. Right. Sorry, Gaara. I was totally out of line. Sorry, I was probably frowning slightly, doing a full scan of the 3's unshielded chakra. It was slightly harsher than average Konoha chakra, probably from the desert environment they hailed from. It made sense that chakra forms differed from place to place. Zabuza and Haku's chakra had felt a little different, too, more fluid, though I hadn't really noticed it at the time. The third ninja, the one they called Gaara, his chakra was something else entirely. It was thicker, coarser, more bloody and hateful. Almost like the chakra of the demon fox Kyuubi. Who are you? I voiced aloud, even though they had already started walking away. Their soft footsteps halted, and at least one of them turned around to look at me. Sabaka no Gaara, of Suna, the boy with the demonic chakra abruptly voiced. There was a short pause of maybe a heartbeat. Who are you? Uchiha Sasuke, my dark friend said coolly. This is Uzumaki Naruto. There was a pause before he realized the third member of our team was here. That is Haruno Sakura. Without another word, the three Suna shinobi vanished. Instantly Sasuke rounded on me. What exams? When did you hear about them? When were you planning on telling me about them? Calm down, I told him awkwardly, scratching my head. I only heard about them a little while ago, from the sensei of Team 9. Right, and when did you last come into contact with him? My friend asked dryly. I haven't. I can just hear him shouting about them. I still hear him shouting about them, I added, twitching as a particularly loud bellow reached my ears. How can you guys not hear that? Naruto, remember, your ears are hypersensitive, Sakura informed me. Ours are normal. We just hear the normal stuff, whereas you can hear Jounin-sensei from 2 kilometers away. Point of interest, I wouldn't class Mato Guy's stealth as being Jounin level. Think Rock Lee, with adult lungs. I shuddered slightly at the thought. At this stage I think about a quarter of the village knows about the Chunin exams from him alone. Chunin exams? Sakura asked with interest. I didn't know they were coming up. The Jounin have been trying to keep it under wraps from the annoying genin population who will demand to be nominated, I explained. The tests begin next week though, so ninja from other countries are starting to pour in. Even if they haven't heard Guy yet, every genin in Konoha will know about the exams one way or another. Finally, Kakashi-sensei, I exclaimed the next morning at approximately 8 o'clock. I thought you were never gonna tell us. Kakashi seemed confused by that. What do you mean, Naruto? What would give you the idea I wouldn't tell you? Where did you hear about them before anyway? I, and most of the village, heard it from Guy, I informed him. I managed to filter it out through some babble about the flames of youth and sparring. Figured you couldn't be bothered to tell us about them until the last second to warn us where not to go. Kakashi-sensei gave a definite shudder, one that I noted down as an unusual reaction in Kakashi's mental file. How well did he know Guy? That message last week, what had that been about? Of course I would tell you 3 about the exams you're entered in. There was a pause before my horrified brain managed to reboot. You what? I nominated you 3 for the Chunin exams, Kakashi-sensei repeated calmly. Even if you don't pass, it will be a good learning experience for the 3 of you. Here are the forms, fill them out and take them to the academy, room 301 on the 3rd floor on the day of the exam. The exam is in 1 week. Good luck, poof, I really am gonna kill him someday. Hey, I hope Sakura shows up, I announced suddenly as we being me and Sasuke, stood in front of the academy where the first test was being held. There was a crowd of genin from every country, their nationality identified by Sasuke's descriptions and my knowledge of village insignia, except Yuki, which I made a mental note to check up on later, hovering around the doors and fighting to get through. Why? Sasuke wanted to know, keeping 2 fingers on my wrist to let me know he was still there even through the raucous din the ninja were making. It's totally optional, and we'd probably do better without her. Actually, all 3 team members need to be present to even get inside, I informed him, voice low. Before this mob got here I heard a pair trying to force their way in, but they weren't allowed. If Sakura's not here, we won't be entering the exam after all, Sasuke grunted, sounding resigned. Hey guys, Sasuke-kun, Naruto, came Sakura's light voice from behind us, carefully quiet. I smiled slightly in thanks that she had listened to the explanation of her loud voice hurting my sensitive ears and nodded in greeting. When did you guys get here? About 2 hours ago, I informed her. I wanted to scout out the competition without having to watch my back too much. There's a lot of talent here, and a lot of no-hopers, too. I can't help but wonder how some of them even made genin. They're more cannon fodder than Chunin material. Come on, let's go, Sasuke said flatly, pushing himself off the tree he'd been leaning on and gently tugging at my orange jacket to let me know we were going. I followed him easily through the crowd, having gotten much better at focusing on an individual's pattern than I had been before weaving around the scrambling genin. I only lost Sasuke once in the mass of sounds and smells, and I quickly found him again, less concerned by the loss of my reference point. Okay, so it still freaked me out. Just not to the point of mental breakdown. We managed to fight our way through the crowd and bolted up the stairs, where another crowd was hovering around a door on the 2nd floor. Why they were so interested in a door I remembered to be the broom closet was beyond me, but I ignored it and made to go up the next flight only to get yanked back by Sakura. Naruto, where are you going, you idiot? To the 3rd floor, I said blankly. But this is the 3rd floor, Sakura insisted, thankfully still quietly. That door there, it's room 301, Naruto. Are you blind or something? I felt Sasuke twitch. Sakura, this is only the 2nd floor, I told her. We need to go up another floor first. That's just a genjutsu, Sasuke added under his breath, and I realized the door had been hinged or similar. Those two Chunin must have set it up, I mused. What two Chunin? Sakura and Sasuke both asked. The two guarding the door, I returned, just as confused as they were. No way does that chakra belong to Genin. My sensing had been getting better and better since the emergency crash course and wave. I could sense power levels now, too, and I was starting to get a feel for the slippery, shadowy anonymity that indicated a shield, the void that had baffled me when we were fighting Zabuza. Another genjutsu, Sasuke realized, and I shook my head silently. Most genjutsu didn't affect me, but they still affected the people around me. I needed to work on my sensing abilities for genjutsu or my friends could get in trouble and I'd never know. I listened to the sounds of a brawl starting and smirked slightly, shaking my head. Leave the silly genin to their fights, and the silly chunin to their amusement. Come on, guys, let's move. As we walked upstairs, my ears caught a conversation somewhere further off, a room upstairs, I suspected. Putting one hand on Sasuke's arm so I wouldn't get lost, I focused in on it. I need to go and do a last scan on the Forest of Death, said a female voice I vaguely recognized as a Konoha Jounin. You have fun torturing the genin with intel gathering, Ibiki. I will, said a male voice, the head of interrogation, if I remembered right. What the heck was Ibiki doing here? It's so amusing, watching them figure out they don't need knowledge, and then fail to do anything useful about it. And they wonder why making Chunin is so difficult? What's the last question this year? The woman asked, sounding interested. The voices were fading, they were moving away from me, out of my range. The do or die, pass or fail, sink or swim question? Risk and pass, or take no chances and fail, was the quiet reply, before they faded entirely. I blinked and stumbled over the last step as I came back to my team. I laughed slightly, then realized Kakashi-sensei was standing idly outside the door to room 301. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, I said, vaguely surprised. What are you doing here? I thought you already passed the Chunin exam? I sensed a glare being shot my way and smiled innocently. The book was shut with a snap, and Kakashi-sensei said, I wanted to be here to make sure all three of you came. We already know that we need everyone here. I interrupted before he could tell us something I already knew. Well then, good luck to all three of you, he said brightly. We have such a weird teacher, Sakura sighed, moving towards the closed door. I could hear more people behind it. I went to follow her, then paused and bit my lip. Should I tell them what I overheard? Or would that count as cheating? But we were ninja. Playing fair is for samurai. Any advantage we had should be exploited. And I shouldn't hold such an advantage from my team. My hearing was one of the few advantages we'd be able to get. The other genin would have years' worth of experience on their sides. Hey guys? I said, making them both pause to look at me. In this exam, it's information gathering, not knowledge. Don't be fooled. And the last question is a risk-taking thing. Risk and pass, take the safe option and fail. I stopped and scratched the back of my head sheepishly at their no doubt questioning looks. Just something I picked up. It wouldn't be nice to not share it. Sasuke breathed out faintly. Thanks, Naruto, that could be useful, he said. Let's show him what we're made of. I grinned and trotted up to him, and we moved towards the door as Team 7. When did you hear that? Sasuke muttered into my ear. Like 2 minutes ago? I whispered back. I think it was the proctors talking. He nodded, and opened the door. The sudden flare of killer intent was rather impressive for a bunch of genin, and I raised both eyebrows. Wow, hostile much? Hey, you made it! Came the boisterous shout from somewhere to our right, and I smelled the unmistakable odor of Kiba and Akamaru, plus the rest of their team. I grinned at them, and then dodged to the side to avoid a flying body. Sasuke Kyuin! Ino shouted as she latched onto her crush. Did you miss me? It must have been so horrible, being stuck with Forehead Girl on your team. Ino pig, get off Sasuke-kun! Sakura shot back. It's touching me. Sasuke whimpered. You us, I muttered at him. How troublesome. Hi, Shikamaru, I said, ignoring the shouting match that had broken out behind me and Sasuke yelping that he was going to be torn in two if they didn't let him go. Oh, for Kami's sake, Sasuke, are you a ninja or not? Do a kawarimi. He did very promptly, leaving the two fangirls to drop the tree branch he had substituted with and continue arguing. So, Shika, how's life? Hey, Naruto, I haven't seen you in ages. Kiba shouted, right next to my ear. I winced, and listened half-heartedly to his happy boasting, not really caring once the volume dropped a little. It was nice to know he hadn't even noticed me delivering a message to his teacher. Hey, it looks like the whole Rookie 9 is here this year. Team 7, Team 8, and Team 10. Damn. went up again. I made a show of glancing around as I matched the 6 other chakra patterns and sensed to my memory before nodding. It looks that way. Wonder how long it'll last? Hey, are you saying we're not gonna make it through this? Would you rookies mind putting a lid on it? I whipped around and fought the urge to snarl at the newcomer. I'd sensed his chakra around the village, but I didn't know him personally. Everyone's on edge, and you guys are making such a racket that some tempers are bound to go off. You're the rookie 9, aren't you? I'd advise you keep your heads down and not make trouble for yourselves. And who are you anyway? Kiba asked loudly. Me? Oh, I'm Yakushi Kabuto, came the easy reply. Kabuto had a friendly voice, but there was something in it that I really didn't like. I've spent most of my life listening to people talking and understanding more from what they didn't say or how they said it. A lot of people talk to me in false kind voices, so I've picked up exactly how to tell what their real intentions are. I read voices better than most people read faces, and I didn't like how Kabuto spoke. Sure, it was friendly enough, open, light-hearted, but there was a sarcastic tinge to it. A taunting smugness that just screamed at my instincts that something was wrong. A condescending tone in his sheepish chuckle as he admitted to failing the exam 7 times. 7, that's sad. I passed the Genin exam on my 3rd and a half go, so how bad must he be? I narrowed my eyes slightly, backing away a little, before turning around altogether and walking away. Sasuke followed me instantly, and Sakura came after us too, while the other 6 rookies stayed, not noticing our departure to the other side of the room. I don't like Kabuto, I told them flat out once we were out of hearing range. There's something wrong in his voice, his attitude, stay away from him and his teammates, and don't trust them. Leave or no, Kabuto is not on our side for this exam. I had no idea how right I was. I just thought he was plotting an ambush, an easy pass for his team later on. I think it was after this that I started to get really paranoid. A door at the bottom of the hall slammed open, and I glanced at it, instantly recognizing 2 of the chakra signatures as Jounin, and 3 more as Chunin, 2 of them the signals that had been guarding the 2nd floor door. Shut up, you miserable tadpoles, shouted the voice I had previously identified as the head of interrogation, and I grinned, knowing this exam was going to be funny as hell. Anyone not in a chair in 4 seconds is disqualified and their team with them. There was a flurry of activity as everyone scrambled for seats, me, Sasuke and Sakura instantly springing for the bench nearest us. Once all was quiet and one unlucky team was chased out for being too slow, complaining the whole way, the man at the front shouted, "My name is Marino Ibiki, and I am your proctor for the first part of this Chunin exam. My word is law, so if I say you're disqualified at any point, get low SD. This is going to be a written exam." He actually laughed at the groans of despair and or horror. "Yes, a written exam, you miserable worms. Come down here and hand over your entry forms in exchange for a number and your exam. Sit where the number indicates, and then shut the hell up." I stood up calmly and walked down to the front, where people were already lining up to get their papers and numbers. Following Sasuke, I stood patiently on the end of the line, swapped my registration for an exam and a pencil, and then read my number, brushing my fingers over the engraved wooden button. Having brushed my hand over several desks as I walked down, I understood the numbering system in the room, hazarded a guess as to my position, walked over and checked it. Bingo! I am so cool! I sat down and scanned the room's chakra essences, finding Sasuke 2 rows behind me and Sakura closer to the front. The rest of the rookie 9 was scattered around, along with plenty of unfamiliar chakras as well. Most of them felt extremely nervous. When did I develop the ability to sense emotion through chakra? That was a new one. Had it happened gradually, or had I had a breakthrough? Filing the whole deal away for investigation later, I tuned back in, and I suspected that the sadistic Jounin up the front was grinning. Now that we're all ready for this, I'll explain the rules. There are 10 questions on this exam, and the marking system is a little different to what you're used to. Instead of being awarded points, you begin with 10 points. For every question you get wrong, a point is deducted from your overall score. If you get caught cheating, then 2 points will be taken from your score. If you cheat 5 times and get caught, then you will be disqualified. If any member of your team gets a score of 0, then the entire team fails. There was a definite groan as that rule was announced, and I frowned. This was information gathering, I knew that already. So we were supposed to cheat, and cheating badly would cost us. But if the questions were hard enough to force us to cheat, and they'd have to be, or the whole test would be pointless, then chances were only very intelligent, or high level, people could answer them. Which meant there were plants in the exam, Chunin or higher. My mind was noting Ibiki's time limit setting. You have 1 hour to do this test, and the 10th question mystery, The 10th question will be given to you when 10 minutes remain, and at the same time, I was tracking down the strong chakra sources in the crowd, separating strong genin and actual chunin. I pinned one down as a definite plant a bare 2 seconds before Ibiki yelled, "Begin!" And I flipped my paper. I put my pencil to the paper and listened closely, shutting my eyes unconsciously as I zeroed in on my target, the chunin plant. As he started to write, not too fast, fortunately, I copied his pencil's movements, listening to the slight scratches it made as graphite was rubbed into the paper. My sharp ears able to tell what direction the characters were going in, how far apart each new stroke was. This was a skill I had learned in the academy when we needed to copy things from the board. I had taught myself to follow the teacher's chalk movements with only my ears. I couldn't read it from the board, but if I heard it being written, I could copy it perfectly. This guy obviously knew all the answers to the questions, and I copied them all dutifully, finishing a good, 10 minutes into the test. Now I had nothing to do. Great. First I checked my answers, to make sure the chunin I had picked out wasn't a moron. They seemed viable, but considering I didn't even understand half the questions, that didn't exactly count for much. Although I was pretty sure the codebreaker was right. Codes were something I understood, my sealing experiences and reading between the lines helping me along. Next I followed the chakra flickers flashing through the room as best I could, recognizing the Byakugan from Hinata, Niji and another Hyuga I didn't know. Sasuke was using the Sharingan behind me. The demonic chakra dude from Suna was using something near the ceiling that just reeked of his chakra, and Ino was stealing answers off Sakura with her mind transfer jutsu. Some guy from Rain, or maybe Kiri, was doing something with chakra and what sounded like needles, and one of the people I didn't know the village of was doing something with bells. And now I was bored again. I flipped over my test paper to find the back completely blank, and couldn't hold back a grin. Now what to draw? I pondered this for a few seconds, my mind flashing through all the conversations I'd heard today for inspiration, and before I knew it my hand was drawing, flickering over the paper in broad strokes, and I just went with the flow and drew. 20 minutes later, I brushed my fingers over the full-length sketch, raising an eyebrow at what I saw. A young woman, maybe 20 years old? Wearing fishnet, a skirt, a trench coat, and not much else. Her hair was pinned up at the back but the ends fanned over her head, and her face was adorned with a rather evil-looking grin. Sadistic, psychotic, satanic. She was holding a kunai nonchalantly with one hand, her other hand making an unfamiliar seal, the barest hints of chakra shading her outline. I had no idea who she was. No, wait, I did. Her name was Anko, couldn't remember last name, and I had actually seen her face when I was 3. I think. The rest of her. I think there was a report on her making special jounin a while back, and that had a series of photographs in it. That I had borrowed temporarily. Apparently I had pieced them together. I stared at the picture for a few seconds, wondering what self-respecting female would wear something like this, before I added a caption underneath, just to freak out anyone who knew this Anko person, and I was bored again. I spent the next 15 minutes scribbling aimlessly on my paper, until finally Ibiki bellowed, "Pencils down. It's time for the 10th question." There was the sound of more than 100 pencils clattering onto the desks, as everyone dropped them. No one dared to make a sound as Ibiki started to speak again. Now, before I give out the 10th question, I'm imposing another rule. You can choose whether or not to take this question. If you choose not to, you and your entire team fail, and you can try again next time. But if you choose to take the question, and you get it wrong, then you and your team can never take the Chunin exams ever again. There was instant chaos, people screaming "That's not fair," left, right, and center. I pinned my hands over my ears in a doomed attempt to block out the noise and waited several minutes for the din to subside. Eventually Ibiki solved the problem. "Shut up." I pried my hands off my ringing ears in blessed silence, ready to block them again if it restarted, but Ibiki kept talking. "I make the rules. For those of you who've taken this exam before and been allowed to return, well, unfortunately for you lot, this is my first year proctoring." He grinned. "I make the rules, and if you don't want to risk failing permanently, put up your hands and leave." For a few seconds nothing happened. Then someone stood up and bolted, not someone I knew. That seemed to have been the floodgate, as suddenly the teams were dropping like flies. I sat patiently and hoped that Sakura would have the guts to wait it out. Hopefully me telling them beforehand about this doozy of a 10th question would help them to hold out. People just kept leaving, some slowly losing their confidence as the pressure poured on, others snapping in an instant under the strain, and still others holding firm. I waited, sensing the emotional states of the people around me wavering through their chakra, the flashes of disappointment, terror, anger, the whole deal. This had to be a new skill. I'd never noticed anything even approaching this magnitude before. Although I had to wonder uneasily what had triggered it. The girl sitting beside me, Hinata, I now realized, was shaking slightly, her clothing rustling faintly, her chakra flickering with indecision. Another team dropped out, this one a Leaf team, not one of the rookie 9. But it was only a matter of time, wasn't it, before someone chickened out, broke under the mounting stress. Was that killer intent I was sensing? Is that everyone? Ibiki asked menacingly. You're all going to risk your careers on this one question, and if someone can't answer it. There was no response, aside from 2 more teams dropping out. That's it. Well then, you all pass. What? The girl from Suna, Temari, shouted out. What happened to the 10th question? There is no 10th question, Ibiki retorted. Or rather, the 10th question is the decision to continue, in spite of the risks, even though you didn't know what was coming. There was some startled muttering, and I thought I heard Sakura turn around in her seat to look at me, but I might have been imagining it. What does that have to do with it? Someone called Grass, if I wasn't wrong. As a Chunin, do you have the ability to say let's turn back halfway through a dangerous mission, just because you don't have enough information? Was Ibiki's thunderous reply. As a Chunin you have to take risks. You have to be willing to fly blind in enemy territory with no idea where you're going or what you're up against. You have to be prepared for anything. You cannot turn down a mission because you think it's too dangerous. We are ninja. The ninja life is danger incarnate. I nodded in understanding. The last question was a test of all that and more. A Chunin has to make decisions that could destroy their team if they pick the wrong option. The 10th question weeded out those who weren't ready to make those kinds of decisions, or weren't ready for the consequences. So you have all passed the first exam, Ibiki repeated. Your second exam will be. The window imploded and I instantly ducked out of the way of any shards. Glass is painful. I heard someone land on the floor and thought I heard the clank of weaponry accompanying it as well, but I focused on the voice now shouting at us. Alright, maggots. I'm Mitarashi Enko, the proctor of the second exam. I want to see you at Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death, in 1 hour. Got that? I winced and covered my ears. Look, well? Get lost. Ibiki was busily gathering up all the exams from the desks. Some had even ended up on the floor. When Hitaki Kakashi, a jounin of one of the rookie 9, came in, eyes glued to his R-rated orange book. Hello, Kakashi, he said mildly, picking up another exam paper and considering whether to shred it on the spot. What brings you here? The book snapped shut, and Ibiki knew that the other man meant business. I've been noticing some odd things about one of my students, and wondered how he was acting around others, as you already know. He mock-glared and Ibiki grinned unrepentantly. Ibiki, this might be important. Did you notice the blonde, Uzumaki Naruto, doing anything strange in your exam at all? Ibiki shrugged, picking up another paper. He wrote all his answers down with his eyes shut for one thing. And he didn't seem at all bothered by the do-or-die ultimatum 10th question. He glanced at another paper and raised an eyebrow. Here's his exam now, he said, noting the message on board, scrawled around the edge in a continuous border, which didn't bother him. No, what was confusing was the way his answer handwriting was a startling imitation of the Chunins that Ibiki had planted a couple of rows in front of him. Interesting. Then he turned the paper over, and nearly had a heart attack. Ibiki? Are you alright? You look like your spleen just imploded, said Kakashi, sounding slightly anxious. Without a word, Ibiki flipped the paper around to show Kakashi a perfect sketch of Enko in one of her favorite battle positions, her left hand in a strengthening seal, her other one holding a kunai ready for a Kuchio's jutsu. The evil grin was more than perfect, and the gleam in her eyes made the black and white image come to life. He read the caption underneath. She's coming, Kakashi's log. I am slowly being driven insane by these genin. I went to check Naruto's progress in the Chunin exams, and his handwriting was perfectly identical to the Chunins he had been copying off. Or rather the Chunin they assumed he was copying off, as no one actually caught him at it. Then he wrote on board to make a border around his exam paper, but what took the cake was his new sketch. On the back was a perfect drawing of Mitarashi Enko, the proctor for the second exam, who I'm quite sure Naruto had never met until she was introduced as the second proctor. He certainly wouldn't have had enough time to sketch her then. And the caption was freaky. She's coming. It was enough to scare Ibiki briefly. I have attached it as a reference. Also, before he went into the exams, he paused in the doorway, and then told his teammates the entire purpose of the first test and what to do with the 10th question. There is definitely something going on here. Note: how did Naruto know I was in ANBU? Chapter 11, Snakebite. I was checking my backpack for the 18th time by feel as I walked towards the second exam with Sasuke, checking that I had packed everything I needed. Did the pack feel too light? What if I'd forgotten something? Were my new tags in here? Had I remembered the extra bundles for my teammates? 10 seconds of frantic scrabbling later, I remembered I'd put them in a pocket of my new pants. Sasuke, who had made me wear them for the exams, informed me they were black, which I wasn't happy about, but he said there was an orange stripe up the hem, so maybe they weren't so bad. Hey, Sasuke, I said to get his attention, pulling out 3 bundles of rectangular paper sheafs with ink seals carefully drawn on them, held together with bands of colored paper, and gently tossing them to him. Here, what are these for? He asked as he opened a velcroed pocket to tuck them away. They're my latest tags. Red band is explosive tags, my own variety, yellow band is shock tags, and white band is flash tags. He made a sound of acknowledgement as we kept walking. Having any luck with the, what are you calling them? Freeze tags? I shook my head. They're difficult. Ice isn't a normal element, so I've been having trouble finding seals. That kid Haku said that his element was a byproduct of a Kekkei, Genkai. I trailed off, frowning, before starting to grin maniacally. Aha! I think I've got it. I began to scribble in a notebook, suddenly having gotten an idea for combining the 2 elemental seals. Ice was made up of water and wind, but they wouldn't mesh. I could see that straight away. I would have to modify them enough to work together, but not so much that they would cease to be what they were. I was still scribbling wildly when we stopped at the edge of the forest of death, a good distance from the other waiting genin. Sasuke knew I worked better with quiet, and we still needed to be close enough that we'd know when the exam started. I finished reworking the water release seal I had hopes I could use and started to fiddle with the next one, barely noticing when Sakura came up to us until she actually said hello. Oh, Sakura. I have some tag seals for you, I said, tugging the bundles out of my pocket and separating the ones for Sakura from the test ones I was planning to use in the exam, with the enemy ninja as guinea pigs. Red is explosive, white is flash, yellow is shock. Wrap them around a kunai or apply to a surface and put in a bit of chakra. These ones have 10-second timers. I'm still trying to get the remote fuses to work. And I don't trust the impact fuses either. What are those purple ones for? She asked, stowing her own tags in her backpack. What color stripe? I asked distractedly, putting the handful of tags away and returning to my C-book with a frown. No, that bit wasn't going to work, the nodes were all wrong. Purple band, yellow stripe, Sakura answered me. The paper was pale purple, too. Those are my new poison tags, I mumbled, erasing part of the wind seal. I want to test them in the exam. Yellow stripe means they're tranquilizer tags. They still need direct contact with the enemy to work. Damn. Stupid wind seal. These things are so hard to work with. What about the green tags? She asked, still bothering me. Damn it, couldn't she see I was trying to work here? They were an attempt at a leaf signature seal gone awry, I muttered, tapping my chin with my pencil. What if I shifted that part, moved the second node? No, that would reverse it, but if I moved it there and connected it to those 2 chakra paths. Aha! I think I've got this. No, wait, arg. Stupid freeze tag. Wait, the green tag seals? They're mud tags. Not lethal but good for a scare. Unless they're the new ones I was going to test, in which case they're quite possibly lethal until I work the kinks out of them. Listen up, maggots! I heard the proctor bellow. As my team shifted towards her, me putting my seal notebook back in my bag, I caught her muttering faintly about aspirin, Panadine, and Tylenol, accompanied by a strong whiff of alcohol, and I winced. Hey guys? I said quietly, getting my teammates' attention. Talk softly around the proctor and be nice. She has a hangover, the mother of all hangovers, from the smell I'm getting. Sasuke muttered something under his breath. Something to do with so why did she break the window then? I listened to Anko's explanation of the second test, frowning internally. This could be a problem. I'd never been in the forest of death before. I was working totally blind, instead of having a pre-research map to help. Then I let out a slow breath, reminding myself that even the wave mission turned out okay. We'd get through this. Somehow. Here, Sasuke said, handing me a sheet of paper and tapping it near the bottom. Sign this. What's it for? I heard Hangover Lady say something about waivers. I told him as I skimmed my fingers over the area he'd tapped to find the sign here line. It's to say we know the dangers of this test. You know, so if we get killed the village won't get in trouble. I nodded as I scrawled my messy signature on the paper. I expected something like that. Mentally, though, I was frowning and taking note of that. This exam would be a perfect time for the up-and-coming genin teams to get snuffed, with no problems. An ambitious village could even sneak an undercover top ninja to kill off as much of the competition as possible. And it would be almost impossible to prove, and then react. I snorted aloud at my own paranoia and handed the waiver back to Sasuke. Like anyone would have the audacity to do that. Then again, everyone would assume no one would have the audacity to paint the Hokage monument, or electrify the staff room coffee maker. I was scanning the chakra signatures of the crowd, trying to sense anyone who was off-key, and taking note that Gaara guy was sending out waves of his murderous aura, when I heard the faint rustle and then the skim of metal cutting the air, and I instantly ducked out of the way, tipping my head aside and spinning on my heel to face whoever had thrown the kunai at me. Now that I think about it, I reacted very calmly, considering. I think I'm getting too used to getting randomly ambushed. Yo, brat, pay attention or you might lose your head, the proctor taunted. I didn't respond except to straighten up and narrow my eyes at her, tilting my head slightly. She was unlikely to actually kill me, too much paperwork, so she was just trying to psych me out. A tiny trickle of blood ran down my cheek, but I wasn't bothered, the cut wasn't serious. I had barely felt it at all anyway. Che, she snorted, then I went stiff as someone came up behind me, edging away, closer to Sasuke, before focusing my every sense on the suppressed chakra essence. It was just wrong. The man reeked of snake and poison, scents I had hated for years, and I felt my lip curling for a second before I forcibly blanked out my expression. This signature felt kind of like Kakashi-sensei's, or Old Man Hokage's, sort of solid, heavy, and how old is this guy? He can't be under 30, but muffled around the edges, so that if someone who wasn't as good as me sensed it, all they would feel was genin-level chakra. But I was better. I'd had practice, and after wave I sensed the shadow, the void of so much more chakra behind it, lurking in wait. It was a creepy feeling. This signature meant trouble. You dropped your kunai, a snake-like voice hissed, and I recoiled away from the reek of venom as the proctor said, thanks. Now if you'd like to stop leaking killing intent, grass brat, before I take it as a threat? Her voice was mild, but there was a hidden threat of pain in it. Killer intent? I had barely noticed it, although there was quite a bit, considering we hadn't even started yet. Sorry, the now identified Grassneen hissed. I suppose the smell of blood got me a little excited. Shut up and get to your gates, Anko ordered, and I followed my teammates to the gate that they had apparently chosen while I was sensing out the competition. You guys ready? Sasuke asked, more to me than Sakura. I nodded cheerfully, taking a deep breath to steady myself and fingering the tag bundles in my pocket, while Sakura assured him that she was as ready as she was going to get. Fwee, the whistle blew, and I heard the gates in front of us creak open. We took off running. We stuck to the ground for a few minutes, Sasuke's hand brushing the trees and my teammates' footsteps guiding me through the forest. For quite a while we just ran, getting some distance, until Sasuke paused and tapped my hand, a signal we needed to talk. I quickly the area, finding no one, and then scanned it again more slowly, even checking underground and sensing nothing more than wildlife. I eventually nodded. Okay, we're clear, but keep it quiet. Thanks, Sasuke said softly. We need a password, so that if we get split up we won't be welcoming enemies into our party by mistake. Something easy to remember but hard to guess. Maybe the password should be individual, to make it harder to infiltrate, Sakura suggested. I frowned suddenly and held up 2 fingers, a signal for silence. I hoped they'd recognize. There, a flicker, not quite right, there. I focused in on the spot, not too concerned, but wary nonetheless. Someone trying to spy. The chakra shielding was only high genin/low chunin, no real issue, but his vitals had given him away. Not a threat, just some random from aim, I think. We shouldn't stay in one place for too long, I said aloud, gently testing my senses to check if his teammates were in range. I didn't think so. Sasuke got my hint, and we started to run again, flitting between the trees and quickly leaving the rain behind. He couldn't keep up with us and stay hidden. When we stopped again I checked the area, then started to speak quietly. Okay guys, I'm going to warn you now, look out for that team from grass, and stay the hell away from them. There is something very wrong about them and I don't want us to be the ones to find out what it is. Second team not to go near is the sand team. That Gaara guy, there's something not right about his chakra. He could probably kill any one of us in an instant, and again, I'd rather not find out. His teammates are pretty dangerous, too, but nothing on his level. All the other teams are fair game, but keep an eye out for those two. I'll give you any warning I can, but I don't know what kind of stealth they have. They may be able to slip past. They're only genin, Sakura argued quietly. They can't be that good. You can sense jounin easily, even when they're hiding their chakra. I shook my head flatly. The grass team, at least one of them is so far above genin level it's not funny, I said grimly. I sensed out his chakra. It's suppressed, very well, but I've been doing this long enough to sort of shadow sense what they're hiding. I swallowed and fell silent, until Sasuke asked, what power level would you guess? Jounin, Hai Chunin? I shook my head slowly, remembering that heavy weight in my awareness. I think we're talking Kage level and up, Sasuke swore softly. What the hell are they playing at? Someone like that could slaughter every genin here without breaking a sweat. I don't know, but be on your guard, I said flatly. Now password, fast, before someone shows. Team for now, we may do individual later in the test when things get more desperate. Let the fire begin, and we fight until the last one stands, Sasuke said quietly. Return phrase is when the last one standing falls, the fire burns from the ashes, and the cycle begins again. Got it? Wait, I ordered, my mind deserting the password problem for a more immediate one. What the hell is that? What's what? Sakura asked. That noise. It's like… I don't know. I turned to face it, and felt the blood drain out of my face as I finally recognized the sound, and the magnitude. Start running. What? What is it? Sakura demanded. To my annoyance they hadn't moved. It's a goddamn giant snake. Move your goddamn asses! Suddenly grasping the gravity of the situation, the pair started sprinting, me on their heels. I'm starting to see what that Enko chick meant when she said dangerous fauna. Sasuke called, rapping his knuckles sharply on a nearby tree that I immediately dodged to the left to avoid. Hate to see what she meant for the flora. I was about to agree when something roughly the size of a building slammed into my side, knocking me flying. Low-hanging branches and foliage whipped against my face and limbs as I rolled to a stop in the shrubbery. For several seconds I lay still, ears ringing, before shaking my head and scrambling to my feet. Sasuke? I called uncertainly, turning my head and trying to listen for my team's footsteps. Sakura? Then I couldn't help screaming as something hot and wet closed over me, and everything turned upside down, and I was dizzy and sick and I couldn't breathe and the smell was horrendous. Snake. The fucking snake. The fucking snake ate me. Ew, alright, this thing is so dead. I snarled, my voice muffled to my own ears, struggling in the snake's throat. Kagebunshin. The tiny, cramped, damp, moving space was starting to fill up with shadow clones, and I held the jutsu, creating more and more and more and more. There was a muffled shriek, and then the wet pressure was gone and me and the 100 Kagebunshin stumbled and landed on the ground. You, one of them groaned. Was that thing a summon, or a real snake? Another asked. I spat, trying to clear my mouth, then retched, emptying my stomach onto the grass, the acid searing my mouth and throat and burning away the taste. I moaned, and my stomach wrenched again, making me cough and spit at the foul taste. I think it was real. I'm tasting blood that ain't mine. Yuck! Whined another clone. I staggered to my feet, still spitting violently, and turned in a small circle, trying to get my bearings back. Spread out and search for the others. If you find them, flare your chakra or something to get our attention, and everyone circle in. Got it? Yes, sir. 100 voices answered me, and soon the air was filled with stumbles, curses, and the occasional poof of a clone accidentally dispelling itself when it tripped over. More than one walked headfirst into trees, making me roll my eyes. God, clones were really pathetic sometimes. I shoved my irritation aside at a sudden flash of familiar chakra, the sweeping rush I would always recognize as my own backed with Kyuubi's fire. One of my clones had found my teammates, frantically running on and calling out, trying to find me. I took off at a sprint in the direction of the chakra flash, which was rapidly dying away. The clone had dispelled itself on something, with other bunched on my tail, closing in on their location. The forest of death was actually kinda cool, I mused, dodging a thorn shrub that had just killed a clone. Maybe me and Sasuke could come here to train sometimes. I half paused as I came close enough to begin to hear speech, confused by what my senses were registering. Don't tell me that snake was poisonous or something. None of it made sense. It sounded like me talking, but it wasn't one of my clones. Hell, it wasn't even my chakra. That made no sense. Henge. Illusion. Genjutsu. Aha. That was it. Someone henged as me. At least I had recognized it as an illusion this time. I clearly heard my own voice reciting the password I only half remembered, and I slowed up a little out of uncertainty. Launching myself straight in there was, flatly, not a good idea. The chakra I was sensing, wasn't it the same as that rain means? I couldn't tell. It was warped slightly by the henge, and I was still too far off. I had to get closer. Sasuke, it seemed, wasn't fooled by the henge or the perfect password, as the next thing I heard from him was a harsh, "How many fingers am I holding up?" The confused answer of 5 was not the one he was looking for, and he attacked instantly. I swore under my breath as they started to move off again, leaving behind the rain ninja as they continued to search for me. Morons. They'd find me a whole lot faster if they stood still and let me catch up to them. I brushed rather violently against a tree that I hadn't known was there and stumbled with a curse, swiping at my stinging arm. Stupid bark, stupid bush, stupid thorns, stupid forest, stupid team. I couldn't go any slower, not if I ever wanted to catch up. But geez, what I wouldn't give for a map right now. Then a pulse of killer intent and venomous chakra flushed through the forest, and I nearly choked in horror at the sensations rushing through me, stumbling slightly before running on. My sensitivity to killer intent was dulled naturally thanks to the furball constantly projecting it from the back of my head, but this was fresh, pure, unsealed, unmuffled murder. Someone was going to die. I just hoped to Kami it wasn't Sasuke or Sakura. My clones were attempting to follow the noises and were systematically dispelling themselves, crashing into trees, shrubs, and large tigers. With a growl of idiots I took off in what I thought was the vague direction of my teammates, though I was probably just randomly making the feeling of it's this way up, as I knew I was completely lost, and promptly smashed into a tree myself. I followed them on ground level with a curse, rubbing my sore cheek. No way could I do tree jumping in an unmapped area. I'd kill myself in 4 seconds flat. I just wished they'd slow down. I was already bruised up from all the trees I couldn't see, and it was a miracle I'd missed as many as I had. I had to catch up to them, and suddenly, I could hear them talking again, hear Sasuke's harsh warning, hear Sakura's panting, hear the softer breathing of the Nin who was facing them, sense his shadowed, suppressed, dangerous chakra, hear his sneering, friendly voice with the evil so badly hidden. I sprinted up the nearest tree, gripping with both hands and feet and then springing from all fours, from an animalistic stance at the snake essence, teeth bared and a feral scream of rage ripping out of my throat. How dare he hurt my teammates? I smelt the blood, smelt the fear, smelt the rage and terror and pain as I lashed out at the snake, barely missing and accidentally knocking a scroll from his fingers that had the faint sign of one of those scrolls Anko had been handing out. There were twin flickers of relief from my teammate's chakra, and one of annoyance from the snake's. "It seems you survived," he hissed, and I pinned the irritation in his voice with a smirk. "Sorry to disappoint you, but you'll find it extremely hard to kill me," I snarled, springing towards my teammates, and hoping I wasn't about to miss the branch and hit the floor. To my relief there was solid wood under my feet, and I stood back up on 2 legs as I held out the scroll I'd snatched and said, "Hey, is this important?" "Naruto." Sasuke began calmly, "I love you. That's the Earth scroll we need." "Really?" I turned my head to look at the scroll I was holding. "Wow, I'm good." Killer intent flared from the snake, making all 3 of us wince, and I said sweetly, "Does the snakey not like being ignored?" "Well, too bad, bub." I tucked the scroll into an inside pocket of my jacket, to make it harder to steal back. "Oh, that sounded weird," Sakura snorted shakily. "Especially coming from him," Sasuke agreed with a che that translated to laughter. Then we all dodged as a volley of shuriken came our way. I felt Sasuke's chakra fluctuate as he formed a Gakakyu, and followed up his movements with a hail of kunai, tagging 3 of them with my own brand of explosives. Apparently Sasuke noticed the strips of paper, as he immediately dodged back, ready to dive for cover. May need to work on the camouflage of those tags. Boom! There was a massive explosion, and I could hear the tree creaking ominously as the snake's chakra hurriedly split itself into several copies. I'd never sensed the jutsu before, but it had the taste of a Doton, so, dirt clones, if I had to guess? In the rush of adrenaline and terror it was impossible to track him, and I was already in trouble. I knew. I had no idea where I was, where the branches were. All I could do was track Sasuke's movements as he sprang from branch to branch and attacked the clones sporadically, adding in an explosive tagged kunai whenever I could pin down a clone with my hearing. Sakura was throwing shuriken, I think, and trying to weave a genjutsu, but even I could have told her that it was a wasted effort. This guy was way out of our league. We needed to get out of here and fast. "Sasuke!" I bellowed, wrapping a tag around another kunai, this one a test tag. He ran for it straight away, landing near Sakura, and as the blade shot towards the grassneen, I took out a pair of mud clones that had been sneaking up on my teammates. Blum! Okay, that was so not the intended effect, but I need to remember that formula, I decided, ears still ringing. The angry hissing from my left was not unexpected, and I merely bared my teeth in response to the wordless threat, reaching for another tag. Sasuke and Sakura suddenly let out choked cries of horror, and I sprang back instantly, backing against the tree trunk before looking at them and calling anxiously, "What's wrong? Sasuke, what's happening?" No answer but a strangled sob which only scared me more. "Sasuke, so Shikumi doesn't affect you, eh?" the man said silkily. "You don't even bat an eyelid at killer intent that would knock out a tiger. You're stronger than you look. I'll take that as a compliment, you snake," I growled. "Sasuke, snap out of it. Team, wake up. What the hell is wrong with you?" The enemy ninja let out a disturbing peal of laughter, and then Sasuke's chakra flared as he grabbed Sakura and sprang to another branch, stifling a cry of pain. "Sasuke, I'm fine, Dobe, it's just a scratch." His sharp, gasping reply was music to my ears, and I relaxed, relieved. Then I let the anger build up inside, needing the furious power for the growing confrontation. This guy was so dead. Sasuke had strung wires across the trees. I could hear the wind itself being cut and slashed by the razor edges of the metal threads. I grinned viciously. I could feel the heavy, choking, burning chakra of the QB surfacing, felt it start to sear my coils, burn my skin, and I waited no longer, letting go of my anger and lashing out. Instantly the grassneen bolted out of reach, brushing one of Sasuke's tripwires and having close to 1,000 volts shot through him in a burst of raw chakra. I grinned again. The shock tags had been worth the long hours and repeatedly exploded living room. He landed, breathing heavily, and I heard Sasuke's quick breathing a few meters above and to my right. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, but I could still hear clearly enough for the snake's words to reach my mind. Well, this is a problem that needs to be fixed. And suddenly there was an insane amount of pressure on my stomach, and I recoiled sharply with a rising cry as fire was dragged through my chakra coils in a spiraling explosion of pain. I fell to my knees, digging one hand into the branch and driving splinters into my fingers as I crouched, doubled over with pain, but the slivers of wood meant nothing in the face of the agony shredding its way through my veins. I clamped down on my scream, forcing it all inwards, pulling my mind under control in time to hear Sasuke shout, "Naruto!" Trembling, I pulled my feet back underneath me and stood up unsteadily. "I'm okay." A lie if there ever was one. But the pain was starting to fade, and through the roaring in my ears that was slowly dying down I could hear Sasuke frantically fighting the snake guy, trying to drive him back with his Katan Jutsu and swiftly losing ground himself. "Oi team!" I bellowed, and hurled a thick chunk of bark at our opponent. Stupid, yes. But Sasuke saw the streaks of blue ink against the white tag wrapped around it, and covered his eyes instantly as he leaped backwards, letting me follow it up with a red ink tag as the grassneen snatched the bark chip out of the air easily. I grinned as I felt the first fuse give way. I actually felt the light blasting my skin, making it tingle slightly with the force of it, and felt extremely pleased with how those amplifying seals had worked out. I wasn't sure how they'd do with the flash tags, so I'd made my teams without them, in case they had the random side effect of making the whole thing explode in your hands. I can deal with that, chakra shields while I'm working, and QB's also pleasant influence. But in the battlefield, that wasn't so okay. The snake's howl of pain made the hazard well worth it. "Sasuke! Back off!" I hollered, and half a second later, the green-inked, high-powered explosive tag went off, and this time, the tree definitely collapsed. The green ink tags aren't perfect yet, but man, they pack one hell of a punch. I leaped over to my team, staggering more than I'd have liked on impact, and gasped out, "What the hell happened? I told you guys to steer clear of this team, this guy in particular." I put a hand to my stomach with a wince. There was angry red-hot chakra roiling from where it had been suppressed, and it hurt like anything, my muscles still shaking slightly from the shock of having it dragged away. And it was fading fast, blackening in my awareness, but I didn't have the time or concentration to deal with it, my teammates, and the snake at the same time. Team and enemy took priority. "Naruto, how many fingers am I holding up?" Sasuke panted, sounding worn out. I stiffened. "What the hell? I'm not that much of an idiot, Sasuke. This is so not the time. And you call me a moron?" He breathed a sigh of relief and said, I guess to Sakura, "It's the real one this time." Then, to me again, "What the hell happened to you? You're covered in blood. Are you hurt? How'd you find us again?" I sensed the snake's chakra flickering back to life alarmingly and reacted instantly. shoving both my teammates away as he pounced, a long blade singing through the air. Crap. He had a sword. Various swearwords. Various bad swearwords. I threw a handful of shuriken at him, making him bounce back to stick to a nearby tree trunk, painfully aware of my fast dwindling supply. I had a lot more in a summoning scroll, in my backpack, somewhat inaccessible in the middle of a life-or-death fight. Sasuke had set off one of his wires with a Karyudan in an attempt to burn him, even slightly, and Sakura was pitching in with a genjutsu that, while not fully affecting him, would probably pull him a little off balance. Then I sucked in a breath as his chakra suddenly appeared in front of me, and I heard the blade swinging. I leaned back, twisting away from the razor-sharp edge I could hear cutting the air. It barely skimmed my shoulder. I couldn't lean back far enough. A line of burning pain slashed across my sightless eyes, and I barely had time to register the blood running down my face before I was kicked violently backwards, landing hard against a tree. All the breath was forced out of my lungs, and I could hardly sense myself slumping on the branch, hardly hear Sakura and Sasuke both screaming my name. All of my attention focused on the explosion of pain centered just behind my forehead, lightning blasts of pain building up against my grip on consciousness, and I was barely holding on when Sasuke screamed. It wasn't a yelp of pain or shock, or a shout of fear. It was a scream of utter agony. I forced my mind to focus in on his chakra, which was flickering fiercely, the snakes backing away from him. There was something, a flux, a violent change, on his neck, the corner of his left collarbone/shoulder. My friend had half collapsed, kneeling on the branch, still screaming as loudly as he could, but I could hardly hear it because someone else was screaming. Was Sakura hurt? Had the snake gotten her too? No, I was screaming. As soon as I registered it, I choked it back, clamping down on the sound, and suddenly everything around me was that much clearer. I could hear the snake freak's steady hissing again, hear Sakura's frantic attempts to calm Sasuke down, hear my best friend's screams with an all-new clarity. I snarled furiously and leapt forwards, my mind focusing on just one thought: making the snake hurt him as much as he'd hurt Sasuke, making him scream like Sasuke was screaming. He wasn't expecting me to recover so fast, and so failed to react in time to fend me off properly, receiving several heavy blows before he threw me away. I very nearly missed the branch, dragging myself onto it with muscles that were shaking with badly suppressed rage, and got ready to spring again, ready to attack. I was pulled up short by Sakura's cry and instantly reeled back, jumping back to my team and abandoning the snake in an instant. I staggered on landing and actually went down on my knees, feeling excruciatingly dizzy. Blood loss, I thought dazedly. It was hard to focus on the fact that if the snake Nin came back we'd be very dead, and I didn't even remember him leaving, and Sasuke was still screaming and my head hurt like fire. Sasuke's screams suddenly cut out and his chakra dropped, making me flinch, but I soon recognized that he had passed out, presumably from the pain, which left me in charge. Greet. Sakura, can you carry Sasuke? I gasped out, getting one foot underneath me and trying to stand. At her affirmative noise, can you carry him and support me? I'm too dizzy to jump straight. You need to take us to a spot to recover. We can't stay here. We made a whole lot of noise, and there's blood everywhere. There'll be teams all over us in minutes. I'll try, she stammered, sounding terrified. And she didn't try to say anything else. Chapter 12, White Light. I was sitting straight back beside Sasuke in a shelter created by natural barricades of tree roots, my hatayate in my hand, while Sakura dabbed uncertainly at the blood on my face. Finally I sighed and said, Sakura, just bind them, already. Do it properly, and don't worry about hurting me. No matter how gentle you are, it's gonna hurt, so at least do it right. Please. Before I pass out from blood loss. I honestly don't know why I haven't already. Oh, okay. See, can you? I'll try not to scream, I said flatly, just hurry up. I'm getting really dizzy, and you'll need me as an advance guard while we wait for Sasuke to wake up. I couldn't help letting out quiet yelps as she wrapped gauze firmly around my slashed eyes, but Sakura didn't hesitate, and I bit down on the sounds and let her tie it off, forcing myself not to fight against the cloth. I let out a shuddering breath, swearing violently in my head as Sakura pulled her hands away and backed off, me wiping shakily at the blood still on my own face with a damp cloth and grimacing at the sticky feeling on my fingers. We'll only stay here overnight, whether or not Sasuke wakes up. If we can get to the tower quick enough, we'll be able to get some good, safe rest, and some medical attention for him, too. I really don't like the feel of that chakra flux. I heard Sakura nod, and then she squeaked, sounding embarrassed, and said, sounds like a good plan to me. I frowned slightly, not enough to disturb my eyes. What was her problem? What was there to be embarrassed about? I shrugged it off as a girl thing and continued, I'll watch Sasuke, you stay on guard. We're not going to be getting much sleep tonight, I'm afraid. Putting one hand in my pocket, I separated out my remaining tag bundles, finding the one I was looking for. Sakura, here. I handed her half of the tags from the sheaf I had selected, explaining, these are, or should be, tranquilizer tags. Slap them on a person like you would an explosive tag to a branch and activate it, and it'll knock him out for at least 12 hours. Just don't use it on Leaf Neen if you can avoid it. They're still in the test stages and I don't know if the effect is strong enough to kill or not. I had nerve tags as well, but they were nowhere near as certain to work. I only started on them after wave, and I didn't want to accidentally hurt my teammate if the tags went bad and exploded randomly. Which they were still kind of prone to doing. As Sakura left the shelter of the buttress roots, I leaned back with a silent groan. It really was a miracle I hadn't collapsed from blood loss already. Head wounds bleed a lot, and this one was no mere scratch. I was fairly sure I hadn't healed already because something was up with the fox. The bellowing pain that still reverberated in my belly was a pretty good clue, but guessed enough of his chakra was still running through my coils to stop the bleeding a little. But still, it was only a guess. I had no idea what the hell was going on. Leaves whispered as I wiped Sasuke's forehead gingerly. He was overheating, feverish, his breath rasping slightly and his chakra rippling angrily, centering around the flux in his left shoulder. That was seriously going to have to get looked at. Sasuke, I said quietly, replacing the damp cloth, you better come through this okay. You hear me? No dying on me. Not now. Not after we've come so far. There was no obvious response, but I thought he gave a faint sigh that might have meant, just hang in there. It'll all be okay in the end. I half smiled, and then exhaled slowly, letting my ears focus on the outside world, listening to the scramblings of small animals, the humming of insects, the screaming of a genin team from Kumo. I wonder what they ran into. But it was a long way from us, so I didn't really care. I took another deep breath, trying not to fidget. My system was still buzzing with adrenaline, even after the long time it had had to calm down, and I found myself twitching incessantly, checking Sasuke's pulse and temperature, scanning the flux every few seconds. Then I flinched, fighting with my stomach, before staggering away to vomit in a nearby bush. My head was killing me. It wasn't just my eyes that hurt. It was like that snake freak attacked my brain as well, making my whole skull radiate pain. I hope that sword thing didn't have acid on it. I coughed, then spat, rinsing out my mouth, before stumbling blindly back and sitting down near Sasuke again to lean against the tree. I sighed, listening to Sakura's quick, anxious breathing out the front of the little cavern created by the tree roots. I needed something to do, or I'd lose it entirely. Or throw up again. Neither option was that inviting. I pulled my sealing notebook out of my backpack and flipped it open, going back to the problem of the freeze tags. The problem was that as a general thing, the elements didn't work together. They worked against each other. You had to change a fundamental part of them to stop them destroying each other inside the tag boom, but doing that meant they weren't wind and water anymore. It was impossible to just contain them, too. Ever tried to put a metaphorical leash on the elements? Not fun. Also does not work. I chewed on my pencil, staring sightlessly at the supposedly innocent seals on the paper with a slight scowl. You can't defuse them enough to get them to connect and work together, and if you separated them far enough for them not to blow up, they wouldn't be able to react to make the ice. A metaphorical light bulb went off in my head, warm and sparking with energy. Directional seals were usually, but if I used them here, plus a spiral glyph to bind it all together, put those seals there, and that one there and change the direction of that rune, those nodes. The connector paths would act as conduits for the extra power, and they even had that endothermic tendency that would let them store power. I grinned at the scramble of notes that the page must look like, then flipped to a new one, wiped my finger over my cheeks, which were wet with blood again, and began to ink in the seals for 3 freeze tags, following my newly determined formula. Ah, hell yes! I muttered happily, ripping out the page and carefully tearing the 3 tags separate. The next unlucky bastards to come across us could be my guinea pigs for these, as opposed to the innocent trees I usually ended up using. Sasuke groaned softly, and I shifted my focus back onto him, wiping the sweat off his face and changing the cloth. Come on, Sasuke, you've beaten worse than this, I told him quietly. Hang in there, huh? We just gotta get to the tower, but you better wake up before then, bastard, you're damn heavy. You hear me? You gotta wake up. He didn't respond, though I was hardly surprised. His chakra system was flaring uncontrollably, and the worst of the storm was centered too close to his head. This kind of crap was painful enough, but in your head? That had to hurt like all fuck. I wrung out a cloth absently, listening to the sound of a genin team arguing off in the west. They were too far for me to make out the words, but they didn't seem to be close enough to be a threat, so I set about finishing the freeze tags, edging them with blood to stop them from going off the second I put chakra into them and deciding on an impact fuse seal. Even if they didn't always work, the timers would be unreliable for these ones. I just finished when I realized that the genin team had stopped arguing and were now moving, and heading straight at us. Shit. Sakura, 3 hostiles, approaching from the west. Be on your guard. She gulped, then whispered, thanks. Be careful. I frowned, wondering what she meant, then turned back to my best friend as he coughed weakly, chakra fluttering disconcertingly. I checked his pulse again, changing the cloth as I listened to the approaching team suspiciously and relaxing slightly as Sasuke's coughing fit calmed. The 3 advancing genin were just that, genin. Their chakra was normal, if with a different feel to most others, and it wasn't aged or shadowed. All the same, 3 enemy genin was probably 3 more than my team could handle right now. I heard a squirrel scurrying around, far too close to our camp, and cocked one eyebrow as I realized it had just escaped from the 3 genin, who had stopped moving for now. The sound of a kunai landing in the dirt made me twitch, and the squirrel bolted away. I guess Sakura hadn't wanted it to set off whatever traps she had set up. Then I heard voices, unfamiliar ones, talking quietly, out of most people's range of hearing. Well, sadly for them, I'm not most people. She noticed the explosive tag on the squirrel? There was a tag on the squirrel. I don't think so. Then what? I think we'll find out if we get closer. That was 2 males. I guess the third was female, judging from footsteps and the usual way genin teams were set out, but I couldn't be certain. Exceptions to every rule and all that shit. So, let's get going. I quietly warned my teammate, get ready, Sakura, they're coming. She squeaked in fear, but I was preoccupied with Sasuke's violent shivering. Damn, he was just going from one extreme to the next. I wondered vaguely what time it was. If I really tried, I could guess it from the lengths of shadows on the ground, or the strength of sunlight, but that was difficult, and not something I usually bothered with. I just asked Sasuke. Not to mention I could usually only tell day and night. But the thought fled my mind as I heard a male genin's voice, one of the ones from just earlier, say mockingly, keeping guard all night? I huddled down instinctively against the bark of the tree roots, wondering if they could see me. Hoping that the answer was no. Wake up, Sasuke-kun. We want to fight him. I froze. Fight Sasuke? What the hell for? There were stronger, more impressive genin out there to prove themselves against, and we were unlikely to be targeted as easy prey. Okay, so we were rookies. I paid only vague attention to Sakura's sharp voice demanding various answers, preferring to mull over my own questions and put a comforting hand on Sasuke's shoulder when he shuddered, his chakra flashing tiredly. The internal fight was wearing him out. Hang in there, Sasuke. I wonder what that man could be thinking. There was a definite sneer in the guy's voice as he spoke, and I frowned slightly. That had something to do with that mark, the power flux in Sasuke's neck, which was still just as violent as before. But hearing that, we can't let you go, the other male added. I'll kill you. And I'll kill this Sasuke guy too. I bared my teeth. Yeah, right. They'd have to get through me first. Wait, Zaku, said the first one, and I instantly pinned the name to the second male voice. How unoriginal. What use is a trap if it's noticed? They spotted one of Sakura's traps. Che, how sad, Sokka said snidely. She threw the knife so the squirrel wouldn't get caught. Let's kill her now, said the first genin, and I could hear the malicious grin in his voice. My heart started to pound as I reached for a weapon, hearing all 3 of the enemies push off from their vantage points, all headed towards us, and then there was a sharp twang as Sakura cut a wire. I raised my eyebrows at the size of the log I could hear swinging down towards them, and grinned. Sakura had definitely improved from the bratty fangirl who'd been a footstool in Sensei's bell test, thinking to trap the above as well as below. Then there was an incredible blast of air, not sound, just air, that shoved against me, no doubt far more violent outside of the shelter. What the hell? I thought frantically, shifting my feet so that I was ready to move if I had to. I was about to charge out, weapons flying, when a voice made me relax as I realized we were okay, at least temporarily. Rock Lee had come to the rescue. Thank Kami-sama for his insane crush on Sakura and inability to back down from a challenge. The blows I could hear landing sounded very painful, and I made a note to watch out for this guy, on top of all the other mental notes on Rock Lee. Seriously, there was enough mental paper in there to make a mental tree. His taijutsu was very impressive, and his speed was nothing to sniff at. I listened to them exchanging blows, half of my focus on Sasuke, who was groaning quietly between gritted teeth. I was starting to get really worried. The flux wasn't getting any better. I still had no clue what it was, and his system was getting exhausted from the constant fight. If I had better chakra control, I might risk giving him a bit of my chakra to help fight whatever was the problem. My chakra was volatile enough to drive it out, but I didn't, so I couldn't. Then I jerked and clapped my hands over my ears, gritting my teeth against a blast of air and ringing sound that shot needles of pain straight through my eardrums into the center of my brain, hot pulses of fire burning in my head and making tears come to my eyes, which made the deep wound there sting. But I paid it no mind, forcing my hands even tighter over my ears and trying to block the painful noise. Then it was gone, and I tried to drag myself back to the present, my skull still echoing with the vicious ringing. Other sounds, people talking, filtered through to my agonized mind, but I couldn't focus on them, my brain flickering from one thing to the next in a confused, pained jumble. Slowly I regained my grip on my senses and consciousness, finding myself crouched on the ground beside Sasuke, my head in my hands. I could hear the sound Genin jeering as Sakura fought them. Sakura! I shot to my feet at the sound of kunai meeting flesh and darted forwards to the entrance, trying to build a mental map of the situation. All I could tell was Sakura was in close quarters combat with. Was it Zaka couldn't tell life signs right? And I could smell the blood, and there was another team in the shrubbery, but no, that was just Team 10. I hope to Kami they don't attack us. And I shouted, Sakura, use a tag. I don't know if that was her original plan or not, but there was the tiny flare of chakra needed to activate a tag, and then she was scrambling away. I held my breath, waiting for the tag to blow, but nothing happened, until Zaka crumpled to the ground. Ah, hell yes, I murmured, grinning. Looks like the tranquilizer tags are a win. Zaka. Yep, definitely a girl as the third-party member. What the hell? Get up, you lazy bum. No reply. I smirked. Ah, hell yes. Che, do I have to do everything myself? The girl complained, and suddenly she was standing above Sakura, making me stiffen in surprise. I'd heard her moving, but that was still rather impressive. You'll never survive as a kunoichi when you're more worried about your looks than your weapons, her cold voice said, and I heard Sakura yelp in pain, putting me on edge as I reached for a tag slowly. But if Sakura was there, she'd get caught in the blast. This wasn't going to be easy. I mean, your hair is perfectly silky smooth. Great for a model, useless for a ninja. Sakura seemed to be being shaken. Had she been grabbed from behind? No, she was being shaken by the hair. Kami, that had to hurt. I seemed to have been forgotten temporarily, and I quickly flicked through my repertoire, trying to think of something I could do to save my teammate, and Sasuke's breathing was getting harsher by the minute. Explosive tags too strong, shock and flash tags too inclusive. I'd hurt Sakura too, other tags contact-based. I heard the buckle of Sakura's weapons pouch clink, raising an eyebrow as Kin sneered, "What are you gonna do with that, kunai? It's not like you're strong enough to actually hurt me." And Sakura's quiet reply, "It's not for you." And the sound of a kunai slashing through hundreds of threads reached my ears. Sakura's feet were suddenly moving again, and my mind computed that she had cut her hair to escape, that there were now 2 free targets. Let's see what these new freeze tags can do. In an instant I had hurled 2 kunai unerringly at the remaining genin, and there was a yelp of shock that was cut off with an odd crack through the air, not like bones snapping, something different. The second tag just exploded in a blizzard of freezing air on contact, making both me and its target, the male genin, curse. Damn, what was wrong with that one? Although that was a cool wrong. The only thing better than a tag doing exactly what it was supposed to was a tag exploding in a whole new way. I think that it was that node, did I? I think I must have, if it reacted like that. The wind seal must have fed through one of those endothermic nodes too many times, over it in the diverter and built up a circular path. Or even just enough power, that would probably do the trick. You little brat. The girl snarled, and I glanced in her direction, wondering what had happened with the tag aimed at her. She was breathing heavily and, I thought, shaking slightly. What happened there? I asked Sakura, pointing at the girl, Kin, I think was her name, who only cursed at me. You froze her feet to the ground, Sakura said, sounding odd. Awesome. That had been the intended effect for these ones. I had finally gotten it to work. Now, what shall I do with these idiots? What about Sasuke-kun? Sakura asked, and I shrugged carelessly. He was behind me, and I could hear everything for ages. He was fine where he was for a minute or two. Aloud I said, Sasuke's just going to have to take care of his own unconscious ass for a while. Is Lee okay? He's out cold, and he's pretty beat up, that air thing. His eardrums messed with his balance, I muttered, nodding. Yeah, I felt it. Bastards. I don't think it was strong enough for his ears to go entirely, though. He should be fine with a little recovery time. I decided then and there that I hated Sound Ninja. Their whole attack theme seemed incredibly unfair to me. I shook my head, trying to dispel the ringing. And it wasn't just this fight. Since we'd come to the forest, it had been explosion after loud clash after screaming genin with no end in sight. In the midst of a battle, I had managed to dismiss the noise, but it irritated me in hindsight. And my head hurt. And I was dizzy. That creep, next time I met him I'd cut his eyes out, see how he liked it, grumble. If I could find him again, that was. His voice and creepy snake scent were ingrained in my memory, but I realized that I didn't have a name to match with the markers. I'd asked Sasuke when he woke his ass up. My eyes were still bleeding sluggishly, and I wondered idly if the euphoric I don't give a damn had something to do with that as I swiveled my head in a sick parody of looking around. Give the stuck-up Hyuga in that tree nightmares, seeing me with blood dripping down my cheeks and bandages tight around my eyes. But so far at least he hadn't attacked us, and as long as it stayed that way, I wouldn't have to deal with him. Instead I focused on the annoying Sound Genin, the two who were still conscious, I mean. Number 3 probably wasn't getting up for a while. The girl was struggling, yelping occasionally as she tried to get free. If she'd had access to ranged weapons she'd probably have proved it already, so no danger there. It was the last one who could be dangerous if he wanted to. But with a little luck, and a lot of bravado, I might be able to scare him off. Slowly, I let my head tilt to the side, and grinned. 2 down, 1 to go, I said conversationally. Would a level 2 explosive tag be overkill, Sakura? Maybe, she said uncertainly. Damn it, Sakura, you're supposed to be a genius. Catch on already. You never let me have any fun, I whined anyway. You've seen them. It wouldn't cause that much of a mess. At this point Sasuke would have said something sarcastic along the lines of, is that the level 2 that exploded the giant snake all over your clothing, or the level 2 that desiccated a square kilometer of heavy jungle? And while Sakura's response wasn't as good as his would have been, it still did the trick. Naruto, I've seen your apartment. Your idea of mess does not tally with mine. Well, as far as I knew, she'd never actually seen my apartment, so apparently she'd gotten the picture. Finally, I pouted, crossing my arms and looking as put out as I could manage. What if they won't go away? Then can I? She sounded like she was considering it, though the sound guy didn't seem all that upset, and then something exploded well behind us, sparks and shrapnel dotting our little clearing. That was another team down. Oh, that's where I left that tag, I exclaimed, trying for delight. Sakura stifled a snort, and finally, the last Sound Genin folded. Very well. He shifted, feet scuffing the grass. I concede defeat to a superior force. If I leave you my teams or a scroll, will you let me take my teammates and leave without further struggle? I automatically glanced at Sakura, thinking quickly as his female teammates spluttered and screeched. We didn't need another scroll, we had both, now. We were in the clear. On the other hand, if these guys didn't have a scroll, it would make it much harder for them to pass this exam. They'd aggravated my headache, which was now the size of a small country, harassed my teammate, and had been going after Sasuke. I wasn't feeling particularly charitable. Fine, I growled. You turn up in my scope again before the end of this, and you'll find out what was making all those explosions earlier. As the tired, defeated chakra of the sound team faded away, my focus was drawn to the rest of Lee's team, who were standing over us but not moving. Yet, I scowled up at their tree. Are you going to come down and bother us too? I demanded, not willing to even try to be subtle. Are you going to try to fight us? The Hyuga asked in return. Annoying bastard, answering questions with questions. Miji, his name was, At this point, I really didn't care. Use one of those level 2 explosive tags of yours to run us off? There was a distinct pause as the two glanced at each other, before the girl I'd nearly trampled in that training exercise all those months ago cleared her throat and said carefully, How about we just take Lee and get out of your hair? I could be perfectly happy with that arrangement, and told them so. Team 10, it seemed, had decided that discretion was the better part of valor, as I'd heard nothing from them for a long while, not so much as an intake of breath. Annoyingly, I couldn't remember when that had happened, but if they'd decided to sneak off without bothering us, so much the better. I was in no mood to be dealing with more people now, not with Sasuke shifting again. Sasuke, I scrambled back to my fallen friend. He was panting, twitching, making odd, soft little noises that I couldn't classify, but his heartbeat was sharp and steady, and his chakra was starting to settle, just a bit. It would clearly still hurt like a bitch, but hey, anything was a good sign at this point. Sasuke? Hey, can you hear me? Come on, man, if you can't hear me then I'm gonna have to get seriously worried about you. He groaned, and the tired, pain-filled sound was like music to my ears. Oh, hell yes. How are you feeling? Come on, buddy, give me something to work with. Pain, blood loss, numbness, something to do with your chakra cost. That's some weird shit it's doing there. Naruto, shut up, he growled. His voice was faint, hoarse, and gasping, a weak little cough punctuating the end of his sentence. But it was a response, for heaven's sake, a response. However, it wasn't what I was looking for. That's not an answer, I informed him crossly. Come on, you were the idiot who didn't avoid the big scary chakra dude. Now own up to it and tell me what he did. The Uchiha tried to move and hissed in pain, slumping back. How the hell should I know? He panted. Ugh. I had the craziest dream. Good for you, I told him brusquely. Can you get up? We got blood everywhere again. We're gonna have to move soon. Good grief, can't you even sit still for 5 minutes without making a mess? Sasuke demanded, now struggling to sit. It was obviously a lot more trouble than it was really worth, because he was forcing chakra into his muscles just to be able to move them right. Chakra made a sharp crack against the ground where it sparked, the heat scorching the grass under his hand to a few blades of ash. Sasuke yelped and jerked his arm back, nearly toppling over. Sakura caught him, and I prodded thoughtfully at the burnt spot. I take it you didn't mean to try to set us all on fire? I said mildly, and my friend swore tiredly at me. Chakra just flashed out, he huffed. Can't control it. I rubbed my jaw, chewing absently on my lower lip as I thought about that. Sasuke's got real good control. When you play with fire most of the time, you have to be able to keep it in check, right? He'd never had the problems I did with random flares. The chakra flux, I said aloud, and Sasuke shifted. I read the question in the movement and continued, kicking my feet off to the side so I wasn't sitting on my heels as I did so. Since you passed out, your chakra's been, like, freaking out. Looks pretty painful, but then what would I know? Anyway, your shoulder looks the worst, which is bad, because your chakra doing cartwheels near your brain is just never a good thing, so, my shoulder? He interrupted, shifting his hand, probably to rub at his collarbone. That's where he bit me, I gaped at him. He bit you? Oh, gross, have you got any idea what that can do? Oh, that's disgusting. Sasuke poked me, and I quickly went back over what we'd been saying, trying to remember what I was supposed to be. Oh, right. So, I think that might have had something to do with it, I finished lamely. Your chakra was going mad, so… I dunno. It doesn't seem to be doing anything now, so maybe we can get Sensei to take a look at it later. Why yeah, I guess so. His hand moved again. From the next sound he was running it through his hair or rubbing his head, or something. Damn, that was such a weird dream. He seemed pretty bothered by it, and my broody Uchiha buddy usually brushed off dreams and nightmares and shit like they were bedbugs or something. About what? I asked, wondering if it had anything to do with his chakra. With it in tune with the rest of you, it's spazzing like that would do something to your head, maybe dreams. Something to look into, maybe. Just searching for something I couldn't find, he murmured, and he was clearly very much out of it, or he'd never have been talking about this in front of his already devout fangirl. There were voices, but they didn't make sense. I couldn't figure out what they wanted, so I just sort of ignored them. He tried to sit up again, hissing in pain even when I tried to take some of his weight, and Sakura supported his other side. Damn, that grass dude really did a number on you, I said slowly, still trying to gauge the real level of injury. I guess, do you know anything about him? The Uchiha, still breathing hard, managed to nod and murmur back, why yeah, not much, I'll admit, and a lot of the crap he was spouting didn't make sense, but he called himself Orochimaru. Nope, doesn't mean anything to me, I shrugged. A few hours later, we stopped for a break, mostly because Sakura just about collapsed and began to cry, spluttering something unintelligible about my eyes and Orochimaru and being so scared and how she was sorry she hadn't been able to stop him from hurting us. It went on for a while, until Sasuke finally gave in and guided me to sit on the forest floor before moving towards the noise of Sakura's sobs. From her little wail and the thump of two bodies colliding, it sounded like she threw herself into his arms, and Sasuke for once didn't sidestep. It wasn't your fault, Amo boy murmured to her. You did all you could. Sit down, come on, sit, and drink this. I tilted my head, interested. Was he giving her a drug to calm her down, or one to sedate her? I hoped it was the former, because I didn't think I could stand unaided anymore, and there was a weird and worrying tingling starting in my extremities. Sasuke, of course, was pretending to be fine, but I could tell he was shaken up as well. We needed all three of us awake to get out of here. Still, after a few minutes' quiet sobbing, Sakura slumped over with an audible rustle of clothing, and I listened as Sasuke lowered her unconscious body to lay on the ground and moved back to sit beside me. Now was as good a time as any for a short break. 2 days in, and we have 2 people out of 3 crippled already, he commented grimly, breaking the silence that had gripped our tiny camp, aside from the leaves and Jenin screaming from afar. Huh! I glanced up from my boredom and stress-induced, and thus completely failed and pointless, attempts to replicate that explosive freeze formula I'd used on the sound Jenin. This stupid curse seal makes it dangerous for me to use chakra, and you're blinded, and this time there's no way to hide it. There was a pause as I considered this. You sure? Yes. Sakura knows. Lee and his team know. Team 10, no, scratch that, Shikamaru knows. The rest of his team maybe not, unless he tells them. You're not healing as fast as usual. There's absolutely no way for you to say I'm not blind, I grimaced, biting my lip. Shit. Sasuke didn't reply aloud, just shuffled closer and hugged me roughly around the shoulders. I sighed tiredly and went limp, leaning heavily against him, feeling exhausted and miserable. What are we gonna do, Sasuke? I don't want to go. But they won't let me be a ninja if I'm blind. That was the whole point of hiding it. I knew they'd never let me. I knew. I buried my face in his shoulder, eyes stinging viciously at the thought of being forced to quit being a ninja. I wouldn't be able to take it. My life as a ninja meant so much to me, and always had, even before I graduated. And Sasuke would be out on missions more and more often, and I'd be left without my best friend. Sasuke awkwardly patted my head as I shuddered, trying not to sob, and said, "It's not over until it's over, Naruto. Don't give up now. Show them that you're meant to be a ninja, that it's in your heart and soul and you can't give it up. Why bother?" I whispered, bloody tears leaking from my broken eyes. Why bother? They'll just drag me off, saying I'm a health hazard, a danger to my team, and you know what? They'd be right. Sasuke sighed, and I knew he was rolling his eyes. Smack. Ow. I cringed, putting one hand to the back of my head. Snap out of it. I stared at him, confused, and he continued, "You're better than this, Naruto. You can and you will be better. Now get up, it's time to go." I stood up slowly, listening to Sasuke checking his bag and waking Sakura, and smiled. Don't give up. I guess it's only fair. How are you feeling? Sakura asked timidly, and I grinned, masking my earlier despair all too easily. Been better, but hey, I'm conscious. Sasuke walked over, brushing my arm to be sure he had my attention. Can you carry your own pack or do you want me to? You lost a lot of blood. I turned my head to him, offended. What kind of prissy sap do you take me for? I picked up my backpack and strapped it down properly, checking that I could reach my sealing scrolls more easily this time. I had refilled my pouch, but it never hurt to be cautious. If we ran into Orochi Freak or Gaara, I didn't want to think about it. Naruto, put your hand on my arm, Sasuke instructed me, pulling me from my worries and making me glare instead. Sasuke, I'm not a little kid who's gonna wander off. I know, he said patiently. Then, very faintly, so faintly only I would be able to hear him, but you're not supposed to be able to do this. I bit my lip, realizing the truth in his words. I wasn't supposed to have been blind for so long that this felt like being treated like I was 4 years old again. No one else knew. No one else could know. So I sighed harshly and put one hand on the soft cloth of his arm guard, letting my hand tighten around it a little like I was nervous. I'm going to start moving, he said, and took a step that I automatically followed, and we started off towards the tower. We won't be doing tree climbing, you'll only hurt yourself that way. There was an unspoken question in that comment. How did you manage it before? I'll learn, I said flatly, and then murmured as quietly as I could, nearly killed myself then. Listen for you and Saku, and aimed. All I could do. Sasuke nodded, then said, after a few minutes of silent travel, you're doing good. Look out for that rock. I half paused, and felt around with my foot to find the offending stone before stepping over it. Sakura was silent beside us. Probably didn't know what to say, how to handle this. My head was pounding, but I didn't say anything. It wasn't too distracting, and there wasn't much I could do about it either. Maybe I should think about modifying the tranquilizer tags into instant painkillers, Then I twitched, and whipped around, a handful of shuriken already flying at the chakra source hiding in the trees, and as it dodged aside with the speed of someone far above Jen, I stiffened and threw more. The chakra was slightly shielded, maybe Jounin level. Only one, where his team hanging around, he'd deflected one of my weapons. Using a kunai, I smelled snake. The smell invaded my nose, the same, as the bastard who'd cut my face in half, the one who'd done that to Sasuke, who'd made Sakura cry. A wave of fear reserved for the one who'd made my eyes useless accessories in the first place, rose up in an unprecedented wave. My tired, confused mind overlapped with nightmares, old memories locked away long ago that still stalked my footsteps, and through it all was the snakes, the smell of them, there, here, now, him. My heart leaped up into my throat and stuck, making breathing hard, and Sasuke was saying something, but it was too late, I was gone, they were here, I could hear them feel them smell snake, and just like that, I bolted. I only got a few paces before a root underfoot snagged my ankle and sent me sprawling, my head smashing against a tree. I'd have run into 2 steps later anyway. I screamed aloud as the rough bark smashed into my temple and dragged across my face, across my eyes, jostling Sakura's bandage, sending fire flooding through my body, rippling in agonizing waves from my eyes, and oh god, there was blood, but I had to go, I had to leave, I couldn't stay. Notogain it. Naruto, Sasuke. My panicking mind latched onto the voice and I stopped flailing, letting him disentangle me from the tree and its low-hanging branches and pull me into a tight hug. It's okay, Naruto, you need to calm down, he murmured. It's okay. You're safe. I shook my head, unable to tell him how not safe we were, but I was getting dizzy and feeling the ground tilt precariously under me, so I just clung tighter and whimpered when he loosed his hug and instead pulled me to my feet. Holy hell, Naruto, what happened to you? A voice exclaimed, and I instantly pinned the false friendliness as Kabuto. How does he know my name? I don't understand. He smells snake. No, not quite, almost snake. Are you okay? That looks nasty. I'm a medic, Neen. Let me take a look at that. Get lost, I growled straight away, pretending I couldn't hear the half-sob in my voice. Lifting a hand cautiously, I gingerly touched my cheeks, where I could feel moisture, and brought newly slicked fingers to my mouth. The coppery tang of my blood flooded my mouth and I gagged, then whimpered a little to think how much blood I had to be losing, and tightened my grip on Sasuke. No more running off on my own and reopening barely closed wounds. Naruto, if he's a medic, Neen, maybe you should, Sakura tried. No! Get lost, Naruto, let me help you, that must hurt. Kabuto pleaded. Stay away from my eyes, you creep. I said get lost. I think you should leave, Kabuto said Sasuke firmly, his right hand on his weapon's pouch. I almost collapsed with relief that Sasuke was on my side. What else is new? And finally, my panic began to abate a little. I didn't relax until Kabuto's signature had backed away from us hurriedly, and was too faint and far off to really sense. Then I breathed a heavy sigh of relief and put one hand to my head. Thanks, Sasuke. No problem. I don't see why you had to be so rude, Sakura said stiffly, and I tilted my head in her direction just slightly, wondering how she could manage to scold me now of all times, for that of all things. Have you forgotten what I told you at the start? I asked brokenly. We can't trust Kabuto. His deception skills would put Jounin to shame. I think he may actually be a Jounin, judging from his speed and chakra, I added as an afterthought. But he's a Konoha Nin, Sakura argued. Sasuke turned his head to look at me, I think. He isn't, is he? I shook my head slowly, not wanting to aggravate the headache. My chin and jaw were wet and dripping onto my shoulders, I realized dimly, but pushed the thought aside before it could panic me. No. He reeks of snakes, like that guy from Grass. I don't trust him, and I wouldn't let him near me on a good day, let alone now. We can't trust anyone out here, Sasuke put in. Our only option is to head for the tower. It's all we can do. By the time we made it to the large structure in the center of the forest, my head was thudding painfully in time with my heartbeat, and I was starting to stumble, my feet not quite following where I wanted them to go. I felt exhausted, leaning on Sasuke heavily, and I felt dizzy and lightheaded at the same time as my blood being made of lead. Hang in there, Naruto, we've made it to the tower, Sasuke said, and I frowned in confusion. Tower, we were heading for the tower, that's right. Why was that? What do these hangings say? Sakura mused, and I thought dully, what hangings? Why'd the wind stop? Are we inside? Heaven and earth, mind and body, forget the riddle, my friend said sharply, and I vaguely felt someone tapping my face. Are they trying to get me to wake up? Why is that? I am awake. Naruto, come on, don't die on me now. I'm not gonna die on you, team. Should we open the scrolls? Sakura asked anxiously. I mean, Ankle said not to until we got to the tower, and well, we're here. At this stage I don't really care, Sasuke declared, and tugged gently at my jacket. To get at my scroll, that's right. There was a rustling of paper. I guess they had opened the scrolls, and there was a rush of smoky warm air. Yo! Kakashi-sensei's lackadaisical greeting roused me from my blood-loss-induced stupor, and I pulled my head off Sasuke's shoulder to smile weakly at him. Hi, sensei. We made it. Naruto. He choked out, sounding horrified. What the F? What the hell happened? Orochi freak happened, I mumbled tiredly. Bastard nearly killed us, and of course the other genin thought a rookie team was easy prey. Stupid lazy bastards. Kakashi put one hand on my shoulder and I twitched at the unexpected contact. His other hand gently gripping my opposite elbow, he shifted my weight off Sasuke and then carefully lowered me to the floor, letting me sit down. To my relief, I wasn't sure how long I could stand up on my own. Sasuke, what happened? Naruto, I'm going to take off the bandages to have a look, Kakashi said calmly. His hand started to unwrap the gauze binding my eyes, keeping one hand on my shoulder. We were being followed when we first entered the forest, and after we threw them off, Naruto got separated from us when a giant snake came after us, my best friend explained. A couple of genin tried to infiltrate, but we had a password, and it didn't work. Then this snaky guy calling himself Orochimaru. I thought I heard Kakashi-sensei inhale sharply at the name, but I might have been imagining it, comes out of nowhere and starts babbling about power and skill, and goes to eat his scroll. Naruto jumped out of the trees and grabbed the scroll, and then we started to fight him. I don't really remember much of the fight. Naruto, I'm going to clean some of the blood away to get a better look at this, okay? Our sensei told me calmly, and I just nodded blearily as Sasuke continued, but Orochi Freak went to cut Naruto in half, and he dodged it, but wasn't quite fast enough, and the sword slashed his eyes instead. I got knocked out soon after that, so I don't know how you guys drove him off. He left, I said flatly, wincing slightly as Kakashi-sensei wiped semi-congealed blood away from the gash over my eyes that had finally stopped actively bleeding, now just oozing sulkily. I guess he got what he came for, or maybe he just got bored. Oh, Kakashi was now dabbing at my eyes with a cold cloth, and I whimpered as the disinfectant began to sting, shuddering and going stiff as my head began to hurt again, gritting my teeth weakly. Sakura, could you go down the hall and take the first door on the left, and ask for a medic, please? Kakashi asked, then shook my shoulder gently, saying, Come on, Naruto, stay with me. But sensei, I'm tired, I mumbled. I didn't sleep last night, or the night before, and that's totally unfair, and I'm sleepy, and cold. It's cold, I heard shouting and made a face internally. I was too tired to deal with the others being irrationally loud. Was I being shaken? I couldn't really feel it. I couldn't feel my hands or feet. Couldn't feel where I was touching the floor, sensing things as if I was 100 miles away. Sasuke was shouting, Wake up, go away, team, I want to sleep, and Kakashi sang loudly, Naruto, stay with me now, squeeze my hand if you can hear me. Why would I need to squeeze his hand? I didn't even know I was holding it, but I tightened the muscles in my hand anyway, my fingers stiff and unresponsive, numb, heavy, unfeeling. I heard an unfamiliar voice say something faintly about adrenaline and painkillers before all the sounds faded away, leaving me in a blissful, painless void. Then I gasped and jerked, a stinging pain in my neck as feeling rushed through my body, shuddering with the shock of it. I shoved myself into a sitting position off the floor, shaking my head dizzily, not even aware I had collapsed. Ow, what the hell? I complained, putting one hand to my neck. Shock, said a voice I didn't know, the medic I assumed. I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did. You said this happened 27 hours ago? Yes, said Sasuke from my left. I could feel his hand on my forearm through my long-sleeved shirt. First day of the exam, late afternoon. He bashed his head a little while ago, though, and the bleeding started again. He trailed off helplessly. Tough little thing you are. Now I'm gonna give you a painkiller, kid, so don't fight me, alright? What's his blood type? I'm going to need to give him a transfusion as soon as possible. Unfamiliar hands grasped my arm and turned it over, and I flinched as the needle slid under my skin, depositing the drug into my system. A moment later, those same hands slid up to my collar and dug for my dog tags. Naruto, I'm going to stand up. Just stay where you are, Kakashi instructed me, before standing up like he'd said he would, but he didn't move away. We made it to the tower okay, then, I decided, tilting my head slightly. So you managed not to lose the scrolls team? Sasuke sighed and patted my arm. No, Dobe, we didn't lose them. You, however, lost a lot of blood. Sorry about that. I grinned sheepishly, then looked up at our sensei and said, So, Kakashi-sensei, what do we do now? All three of you are going to go to the hospital to get checked and fixed up, Kakashi replied calmly, and I frowned slightly in confusion. Not that, sensei, I meant for the Chunin exams. What comes next? Kakashi sighed sadly. Naruto, Team 7 won't be continuing. You'll have to be disqualified. What? I howled, thrashing on the floor as the medic yelped. Why? We're allowed to get medical help once we get here. We brought both the scrolls, none of us died. Why would we be disqualified? Because, Naruto, one of the requirements is that none of you are incapacitated, unconscious or otherwise unable to fight when you reach the tower, Kakashi explained patiently. You can't fight, so your team cannot continue. What? I can still fight. I shouted indignantly, struggling to sit up and ignoring the medic's protests. So I had a little fainting thing a moment ago. I'm okay. Honest, Naruto. I smacked Sasuke on the back of the head, and he yelped. Ow. Then, purely reflexively, he punched me in the shoulder in retaliation. Ow. I whined. Kakashi sighed heavily in exasperation, and I grinned. I'm fine, Kaka-sensei. I can still fight. We can keep going easy. Naruto, you can't, our sensei said firmly, and I bared my teeth, chakra starting to flare up angrily. I can, Kakashi-sensei. I snapped, and Sasuke sighed faintly from beside me, but didn't try to interrupt. I'm not helpless. I might not be at my best right now, but I can still put up a damn good fight. We can pass the second exam. The medic cleared his throat and made us all turn our heads towards him, me cocking my head slightly. Excuse me, Hataki-san, but your genin is correct. He may not be able to fight particularly well, but he can hold a kunai and stand up, so technically he's not disabled or incapable of fighting. They are allowed to continue, technically. There was a long pause, with a steady rise in killer intent that was aimed at the medic. I couldn't help grinning. Kakashi-sensei glaring was always interesting, provided it wasn't me he was glaring at. Oh yeah. I love technicalities. I cheered, albeit in a much more subdued manner than my norm. Naruto, maybe this isn't a good idea, Sakura tried. Sasuke snorted. Don't bother. His mind's made up. No point in arguing with him now. He's too stubborn. I stuck my tongue out at him, and the medic seemed to reach the end of his, justifiably limited patience. You may discuss this later, he said urgently. Nothing will happen until the exam finishes in a few days, and right now I need this genin in the hospital wing. Girl, you run ahead and tell them to have 2 liters of B-positive blood ready and waiting. Hataki Uchiha, help me get him up. Naruto, you need to stay still now, okay? You've lost a lot of blood, so we have to stop the bleeding and give you some more. It's going to be okay, but you need to stay awake. Talk to me. I felt hands lifting me, but didn't even compute the indignity of it, falling away from the conscious world. And so, with the excessive damage to the cornea and aqueous humor, not to mention the wounds to the irises, it is unlikely that. Look, could you just cut the doctor jargon and speak to me in Japanese like a normal person? I asked impatiently. It was roughly a day later, and I was being discharged from intensive care. Yay. Now, if I could just understand what the good doctor was telling me. I don't speak medical lingo. The doctor sighed, sounding annoyed, and Sasuke stifled a snort from beside me, making me grin. I meant, Uzumaki-san, that your eyes are so damaged it's not medically possible that you'll ever be able to see again. You were permanently blinded. There was a long pause as I waited for the doctor to continue, but that seemed to have been the ultimatum. So, I said slowly, what about the other injuries? Any broken bones I should know about and can't remember? Hit my head one too many times? Burns, sprains, all that crap. The doctor sighed again, more irritably this time, and papers flipped. Minor concussion. Minor to moderate blunt force trauma. Various contusions and deep tissue trauma. Various small to medium cuts. Slight strain in left wrist, presumably from falling on it. Severe gash to the head, causing extreme damage to the eyes. Moderate to major blood loss. Shock. That about covers it. Really? That's it? I was mildly surprised. Nothing broken? That's new. Well, there's a stress fracture or 2 in your skull, but nothing worth mentioning. Great, I said cheerfully, pushing myself off the bed. A couple of days' rest and I'll be ready for whatever this exam has left to throw at us. The doctor patted my shoulder in a way I think he meant to be comforting. All right, you can go now. Uchiha-san, your room is on this floor, room 137. Take a left from here, a right down the corridor, and it's halfway down the hallway. Take Uzumaki-san there and get some sleep, okay? I need to speak with your teacher. Sasuke led me down the hallway silently, holding my wrist gently, and I couldn't help shifting my head so that I would appear to be looking at things as we went. It was habit, now, ingrained from years of practice. But even though I could vaguely sense out the area from our echoing footsteps, I asked, "What's this place look like, anyway?" "Stone walls, metal doors," Sasuke replied. "Floor seems to be stone, but I could be wrong. Fairly well lit, electric lights and so on. There are metal numbers nailed to the walls beside each door. I guess they're the room numbers. We just passed 100, must be nearly there." I nodded my thanks, and paused a few minutes later as Sasuke pulled himself to a stop. There was the sound of a door opening, and then I heard Sakura yelp slightly. She hadn't taken long to be checked over, and so had apparently been sent ahead. "Oh. Sasuke-kun, Naruto. What did the doctor say?" I scratched my head. There was a whole lot of medical jargon, but I somehow avoided breaking any bones. Couple of stress fractures, blood loss, cuts, bruises and so on, but hey! No bones! That's good news. There was a pause, and Sasuke muttered, "I believe she meant what he said about your eyes, though." "Oh yeah?" Heat rushed to my cheeks and I rubbed the back of my head sheepishly. "Well, what do you want me to tell her?" "I seriously didn't get all the medical crap," Sasuke sighed. "Okay. Just sit on the bed, head left to the wall, and follow it. I'll tell her. You're too dense to do it gently." I ran my hand along the wall until I ran into the bed, sitting down on it with a sigh of relief as Sasuke said quietly, "The doctor told us the outlook was very bad. There was a poison on the sword. It's a miracle it didn't kill him, and the damage done was extensive." "Sakura. Naruto was blinded. And it's permanent. There's nothing anyone can do." The girl gasped slightly, but I was starting to feel really sleepy. Must have been the painkillers. I let my mind slip away. Kakashi's log. "Sensei, I'm sorry. I'm a failure as a teacher. I know you'll never forgive me for everything I've done, but I'm sorry, and I always will be."